the argument that we should even have, like, let's have a mosque. I saw the speech, whatever the statement from Mombasa, let's have a mosque on other things, or what happens if the next president is not Christian. That question shouldn't be there, because there should be nothing to do with religion or religious groups or groupings in the State House. Therefore, what I'm asking here is for people to think that this is an illegal issue that must be curtailed there without further questions of whether who will be the pastor, what denomination, should the other regions also require to build a mosque and a temple and all that, because the constitution is very clear. And for that reason, I remember in 2022 when we were busy in the middle of the campaigns, and I did indicate that Ruto, and then I have to declare my bias, Ruto is going to be the reason why the church in Kenya will be clean, because it's going to show even the people what church is not. And indeed, whether it's God who has allowed it to be, it has been demonstrated through his acts that this is not what church was meant to be. And for that reason, there will be remnants. So what I'm expecting is, at the very minimum, to have pastors and bishops by the end of this weekend who are going to come up strongly and declare that what is happening, it is not what it was meant to be. The other thing why I believe this is really critical and significantly important is that it has actually brought to the front for people to understand there has actually been a church there, Yamabati, another illegal structure in the State House. So it has given us room for us to demand for the demolition of anything religious in the State House. So what we really need to push for is that this, number one, what is being discussed here is something that is against the Constitution, and therefore we expect at least the legal minds and the legal people here to move forward for us to rally behind them to challenge that admission by President Ruto that number one, there's already a church there, but number two, that is trying to build a permanent church in that place worth 1.2 billion. Oh, okay. I guess my time is up. Okay.
Not really. Your time is not
I
out.
don't think it's I want to ask a question.
Your time
Okay,
is not
go
out. Justice
Get it,
for all.
Get it.
I think the concern myself, or probably most of us are here having here, it's not even the fact that a church is being built. Probably you can tell us from your understanding, for those of you who practice Christian faith, churches or community of churches, they do something called planting of a church. And then when the structure comes, there is the overall overseeing organization. Maybe it could be the Assemblies of God, the Anglican Church, or whatever other ones you think about that comes to your head, that will say, now we want to have a church at this and that location. And by the way, this is required by the state itself. So the question we are asking is, irrespective of all these irregularities that are happening, we are trying to prove a point beyond what we are saying, that we understand the process, even if there was supposed to be a church. That's question number one, that I think maybe we cannot say it's not a question to be asked, because who is then the bishop, the pastor, whoever it is, that is going to see that church or pastor that church?
Well, I mean,
Is it going to be Ruto?
No, really. I think we had a situation, and I think probably Weston is a good student of this, and they can tell us when President Trump came to the White House, he actually appointed Paula White as to a position of being the minister for the White House. Now, actually, Ruto has appointed quite a number of religious people as the ministers to spiritual leaders in the White House. So we know he's a non-denominational kind of evangelical person. My speculation is that he will go in that direction. But I don't think he would even reach there, because what's going to happen legally, that's my own speculation now, is that this is going to be stopped. And again, we are going back to the constitutionalism where this has to be stopped. The other point I wanted to make in regard to this issue of a donation, and that is where we failed the other time when he talked about friends donating to him or whatever plane he used to go to the state visit in the US. The parliament failed completely because we have an act that is supposed to scrutinize these kind of donations because it was a private donation as it was indicated. Then the intention, and this was supposed to be declared ahead of time, then be scrutinized and see if that was regular or irregular. When we start admitting having somebody in the position of a president accepting these gifts, this is something that is addressed in our laws. Even the ESCC needs to have come in to really look into this because this is a public, a state officer or whatever public officer. But on the part of donating 1.2 billion, God forbid, we move past the aspect of the illegality of setting up a church in the State House. And he says that this is my personal funds. Then the question comes in, anytime you are donating something that's going to affect a public property, and this is, everybody's allowed to donate. You can donate to private, you can donate to a church, you can donate. We want people who are philanthropic. But when you get to that level where it's donating something that's affecting a public property like what we are dealing with, you're supposed to declare. And then we are including the source of the funds. And obviously, this needs to be very clear on where this source of 1.2 billion is coming from. So we are really trading in a way that, if you think very carefully, there's so much that is going on that has made this country to be a personal property for Ruto. And that's why he can come in and do anything he wants, because to him, he thinks the State House belongs to him. I learned by saying this. Huyu jamaa vile mnaona anaanza kurenovate the State House na kujenga kanisa hapa, hatoki uongozini. Do you guys hear me? Let me whisper to you. This guy is not planning to leave. So this thing that is happening here, this guy believes he wants to be there forever, and that's what he's doing. I am so sorry to break the bad news to you. But for now, this is bad news. He's in for a rude shock on how the country is going to react in the next 3 days. Thank you for the opportunity to share.
Justice for all, I'll tell you. You realize Ruto is the first president who has the title doctor. He's the smartest president Kenya has ever had, but he's done the smartest things you can imagine. An affront to the Constitution. He's the smartest person in the room, but his choices and decisions, God knows. Karomo,
But as you bring Karomo in, let me ask you, Obed, why did he come in, as Karomo, you come, why did he come in to respond that way today without thinking? What is happening that every reaction, it is so blatantly wrong and evil, arrogant, that he didn't even think. Did he even think how to respond?
Justice for all again. Do you have a PhD? Do you have a PhD? You don't.
When he dropped out, I'll drop out. He was about to. He dropped out. Let me just tell the audience. We know you dropped out. You're about to become a doctorate. You refuse to have permanent head damage.
Eli, I think I like what them to say. The president did say that yeye amesoma, nyinyi wote mwenye mnampigia kelele amjasoma kama yeye. So there's no way you Kenyans are telling him what to do when he knows best. He's amongst the elite in this country. So let's not even have an argument about that. But yes,
Obed, before you invite in Karomo to finish his submission, there's something that Justice has touched on, and that something was also bothering me about the issue of donation and the source of money. Now, we know that President Ruto does not own State House. He lives there by virtue of him being the president and the current head of state, because that is official residence. That said, he has no power to come and decide this is the concession he's going to come up with. And even you, Obeds, in your private property, before you build anything, you know you need authorization from the county or sub-county offices, your own property. Now, this is a president who is a tenant at State House, courtesy of Kenyans, decides he's going to build a church in the name of God, goes ahead to procure the materials, fundi wa mjengo, na amesema nitajenga hata shetani akasirike. Now these shetanis that are here, I'm supposed you guys are the shetani because mmekuwa mkikasisha president sana, mumejawa na mapepo. So hii mapepo yenyu isiwaletee kisirani, mfikirie mtasimamisha kazi ya Mungu. But what I need to understand is now that he's donated 1.2 billion approximated amount of cash to the state of Kenya, is he going to declare the source and the reason of this gift to the state of Kenya? Back to you, sir.
Eli, I like your eloquence in asking questions. And I think logic is a very good thing to many who believe they understand. But as we stand in this country, everybody else is dumb except for one man. And that's why he made decisions that are working in his favor and not in our favor. So I'm not trivializing what it is. What I'm trying to say is, when you have a man, and God is very faithful, at least he allowed us to have this man to show us every sense of incompetence in a man who is well read. I cannot rephrase it in a better way because, one, he's aloof. Two, he's the smartest person in the room. Three, he does not respect anybody's opinion, including people who he has appointed to listen to, to advise him. What do you expect? Karomo, I allow you to speak, then I get to hear from Mayo and then Japonji.
Thank you very much. Let me finish in about 2 minutes. I was talking about money laundering. I want to steer your minds from mambo ya spiritual na mambo tofauti to money laundering, because I really feel somewhere deep inside, I think this church is about money laundering. William Ruto has been accused or suspected of having links with watu suspicious sana in the mambo ya gold in Sudan, mambo ya UAE, his friends there, that fat guy from Zimbabwe who is a known money launderer, and this church will be used for that same thing. Already he has laundered money, 1.2 billion, because he cannot explain where he got that money from to build this church. Wameamua sasa hawataenda kule mashinani kwa zile churches ambazo wanaendanga wanafanya hiyo mambo. They want to do it themselves under their protection, under the confines of Statehouse. So for me, this issue is about money laundering, but time will tell, and we should really think about that. Let us not ask the wrong questions. Let us ask the right questions. Because when somebody is aloof, when somebody is very arrogant, when he believes he's the only smart person, something is up. Tunahatarisha mboka ya Ruto by kuuliza maswali. Because Ruto is not a church guy, he's not a religious guy. Si mtu ati anapenda Mungu vile, because we know his acts. Why is he building a church? He's only building a church because he's greedy. That's where greed yake imemfikisha. Thank you, I learned.
Karomo, your point is not far-fetched. I totally agree. But Eli, I don't want Subaru's following me. Ayo, please make your contribution.
Bwana, kama wewe ukiamua wewe ni Mkenya, usiogope Subaru. Ukishakuwa Mkenya na uko Twitter space, usiogope Subaru.
I have an intention of buying one. Kuna zile change number plates all the time.
Obeds ambia watu saizi kushikwa ni kitu mbaya sana na Subaru kwa sababu ni Julai, baridi ya serikali utawezana nayo mpaka kwa nyumba tu
bro.
His space imewaka moto, and I love how people are reasoning. I'm by then nimengoja hapo for 1 hour 30 minutes. Hata si complain. I'm just loving how to hear what other people are saying.
Because hatuna ubaya.
Juu, tell me why. Nasikiza tu wase nasema, na snap tu, that's a point. And by the way, huyu ni ule mtu mmoja mwenye aliban watu kwa kanisa, anataka kuwajengea kanisa. Ule mtu mmoja alisema ban that church, ni anataka kuwatengenezea kanisa ya 1.2 billion. Aliona hiyo kanisa ilikuwa very
allegedly.
aliona hiyo kanisa ni very cheap. Tutachoma tujenge ingine tutajenga wapi? Ikulu. Bwana, what are you telling me? What are you telling me? Okay, kwanza, to begin with, State House is a public institution that belongs to all the Kenyans from all the 42 plus tribes, not one religion. All it belongs to Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, Hindus, non-conformist, wanasemanga fuck religion, it also belongs to them. And while our constitution recognizes the supremacy of God, it also guarantees freedom of worship. And Kenya is a home to Christians, Muslims, Hindus, atheists, and even others. And trust me, building a church at the State House risks alienating non-Christians citizens. And what happens if the future president is Muslim or an atheist? The other day we had this presidential candidate alikuwa anaitwa nani, huyo Mabangi, alikuwa anasema, he had some very interesting takes on religion. What happens to such people? Yeah, and national spaces, I believe, must remain neutral because they represent everyone. A president is a head of state. Head of state inamaanisha kila mtu, see a selected few, see a selected tribe or a selected
He's about
religion.
to become a head of church.
Yeah, right now, to come from a president to a head of a denomination or a head of a selected inaitwaje religion
He's the head of
believers.
government, head of church
Yeah.
at the same time, and we know one that is like that in the world.
You know, he visited Vatican. Sasa akapiga hesabu akasema, mama yangu, ile pesa wa Katoliki wana collect inakuja hapa yote.
Anataka nini religion yake pia. So I think national spaces must remain neutral, and personal faith should not be imposed through public office, to be honest. And actually this Ruto move, it risks dividing and not uniting the country, because other religions are starting wataanza kufeel ni kama they don't belong. Yeah, and Kenya belongs to all of us. Kenya ni home kwa every one of us, not just those who share the president's religion. And I was doing, as guys were speaking, I was doing a research here, and I realized that Kenya peke yake, where's the document? It consists of 85% Christians, and 47% of those are Protestants, 23% are Catholics. And other non-Christian groups are like Orthodox, Anglican, African Independent Churches, 15%. Islam is 11%. And traditional African religions are about 1.5%, right? Hinduism, Buddhism, and other religions is 1%, right? And unaffiliated, those are atheists and agnostic human beings, they're 1.5. So as much as Christianity is the dominant religion, it doesn't mean that Kenya is just for the Christians. That is besides the point. My main point is, constitutionally, Article 8 of the Constitution is unequivocal. It states that there shall be no state religion. And that simply yet a profound statement anchors Kenya's identity as a secular republic where governance remains neutral in matters of faith, right? And the framers of this constitution intentionally rejected models of religion, or rather religion, since as seen as other places in Africa, they recognized Kenya's complex interfaith tapestry. So a state, as I conclude, I don't even want to talk much. A State House church would, shatter that careful balance. It would institutionalize Christian privilege to begin with. The physical presence of a Christian place of worship in the seat of the executive power would literally send an unmistakable message, not only to the country, but to the world at large and Africa at large, that the State House endorses one faith tradition above others. So we are trying to say that Kenya is just a Christian country. So all these other religions, what are they supposed to do with themselves? So, and that move is also going to create exclusionary state spaces. Because does that mean that all the Muslims that are in government, or all other leaders that are coming from other religions that are in government, they are not supposed now to go to State House because they'll be forced to go in church, if that makes sense in any way, right? So how do we how is the president creating equity in the country? Because I feel that the equality principle is under threat. Yeah, Article 27 guarantees the freedom from discrimination, and it takes on particular significance in the context that the Constitution prohibits both direct and indirect forms of religious favoritism, including the use of state infrastructure to promote particular beliefs. That could be those could consider implications like taxpayer-funded post-realization. It could consider coercive atmospherics, like the psychological impact on government workers and visitors could be profound. Do you need to tell me that? Then that means kama anajenga church that 1.2 billion, ajenge mosque hapo kando, ajenge nini ya Buddhist hapo kando. Sisi watu wenye atuendangi kanisa pia tujenge kitu hapo kando. What is he trying to say? Because at the end of the day,
Mtajenga club.
atujenge klabu yenye tutakuwa tunaenda
Hayo
tunda
kama
hapo.
unataka ujengewe mti, unajua dini yako.
Atujenge klabu hapo kando, tukuje tukisikia rumba, tukitoka tunakuja makwetu, right? So because I feel at the end of the day, another question is, Ruto anajaribu kusema anataka kwa hapo State House for the longest time possible, because anajenga church, anataka is trying to feel at home. In short, Ruto is trying to feel at home. State House is my home, nitaishi hapa milele. Yeye ni kama the guy that we read in our tamthilia Kifo Kisimani. Alikuwa anaitwaje huyu mtu? Alikuwa anabudiwa kama king. So ataishi kurule milele na milele because amejenga church. Next atajenga nini hapo? BNB yake ama nini? Right? So I don't understand. And Ruto is such an arrogant human being, and he tends to look at us as very stupid, that he tends to even create every reason of everything he's doing. Like he'll do something and he tries to attach a reason to it and tries to gaslight us in return. Mtadu, mimi nitajenga, mimi ni mcha Mungu. Unasikia venye anaongea? Mimi ni mcha Mungu na nilisema nitajenga kanisa. Kanisa ni ya Mungu. Is he forcing God on us? Ama sisi ndio hatujui God vizuri? Unaget? I believe in God. I don't go to church. And I'm okay with it. Yes, jakanyaga kanisa. Nimekufa? No. Don't I believe it? I believe in God. Sisi ni wale I'm landing. So what I'm asking is, and it's quite pertinent, what I'm asking is, what happens to this president who's violated almost basically 90% or 70% of the Constitution, and he does it in broad daylight, and it seems like we can't do shit about it. Sorry for using the S word.
Obeds, ile hasira umeamsha hapa. Please.
Sasa mimi nalaumiwa kwa nini? Mimi si president.
Remember, because of you wametublokia chat section. Sasa sijui watu wanatuma wapi tweet zao.
Ila I have never been president na sijaitisha kuwa president. Sasa mimi sijakasirisha watu na sijengi kanisa State House. However,
kabla tuendelee, I think it's good we read some of the comments from the earlier chat, if you don't mind, Obed. I don't know if you're able to locate a few of them, but I like the fact that Asma is saying it is not a propaganda. Don't forget the political culture that has shaped Kasongo and his religious idiocy is Moism. The church is one thing. What else hasn't he done to level up with Moi's dictatorship? From corruption akin to Goldenberg to economic, political cannibalism. His God love bloodshed. Okay. Even the mama kuongelea rais. Colossians 1:18-25, we should understand that church is a body and Jesus Christ is the head. Haya basi, kama mko mmefikiria tumeacha Biblia ndio hiyo mtasikia. That is according to A003. Aizo says Islam wamesema ajenge msikiti pia. Well, that's where we are headed, kwa sababu mumeamua mtaharibu State House. I want to challenge him, aombe mvua inyeshe. Kwani mnaongelea Rais Deputy Jesus namna hii? Amjui he's capable of a lot of stuff. What we have in State House is a demonic altar for human sacrifice. It's not a church. That's according to Kiari Njau. Mustafa Anikota anasema this kind of narrative is made to conflate our narratives of Sabasaba Syrian numbers, Occupy Space and State House 2025, among others, should be the issue we should be discussing about, and the reconstitution of IEBC etc. We are wasting our time, which is very precious. So nyinyi mko hapa unaharibu wakati na ni IEBC inaendelea tu. Umesahau Ruto ndio chief appointing officer huko. Sijui nyinyi mnajisaidia namna gani. But then again, Kabuya is asking us, or rather say, the paradox box, rather the Pandora's box, wonders never cease. This confirms the inseparability of colonial religion with political power. Josephine, now the Muslims want Ruto to construct a mosque in the State House. Nafikiri nimesikia such a press statement earlier on. I think we had already looked at that one from Joseph. Let me go to Matt, who is saying he's also had an MOU with evangelicals before the elections. It could be part of their share. Well, Mudhoni says church is not first priority for Ruto to build. Ajenge Sugoya wachani na State House, maybe at a title deed already grabbed. Mnajua, as we speaking, walikuwa wamesema to whom it may concern. Just in case uko unapita polepole Nairobi ukakutana na barua imeandikwa title deed ya NEC. Tafadhali Kenya mzalendo, tulete hiyo kitu. Hiyo kitu hatujui nani alibeba. Obels. NEC haijui mali title diko.
Tukienda State House kwa room ya ule kijana mkubwa mwenye ni lawyer, tunaweza ipata huko. But that said, imagine tunajenga kanisa. But we promised wa mama, when we get into power 3 months, watu watakuwa wapigwa diapers. Bro, tangu msia kwa prezo, wa mama wajaiza.
Sasa hata utatoa wapi nguvu ya birth rate in this country? Wababa hawana kazi. Akina mama akiona mbaba hana pesa, hana kazi, atampea kazi kwa vijana? Haiwezekani ndugu. It is that serious.
Kazi kwa wazee. Japonji, and then have gentleman. There's a gentleman who was there, Potea, drop. So Japonji, then Limenik.
Actually, I think Redemptor had a question. If you don't mind, allow her to ask the question and then we can have Japonji. And guys, kindly be patient. Leo hatuna haraka, even though mambo ni mengi.
Sorry, the guy I wanted to ask the question has gone, but justice for and Ronyo, when we bring the money laundering aspect to this conversation, and sometimes the reason why I talk about very vague things is because the president has mastered this class, these elitist discussions. What he fears are the Gen Zs because they talk the way he talks. So the question is, what is the end game? So he has cupboards, and they said allegedly Saitoti also had a banker, and ilipimwa na Ronyo shaisikia hiyo stereotype, hiyo theory. Ilipimwa na tape measure, the bundles of the way Gachagua said, there's a container. So I'm thinking now from the container there's going to be a banker. So my question is, since he doesn't respect the law, he's saying, let me play with your emotions and say it's a church so that you react, we get it over with. Since the law cannot work, what is the end? There's a tunnel, there's this, all these theories. Is there a solution, or tutakuja hapa tuseme sasa ametushinda akili? I would really want to know. And even anybody who's speaking after that, the theories we have, what is the end game? Because he's staying there forever, according to these signs. I wanted to know what, if you can think about the money laundering, because for Saitoti, they said they even found police uniforms, allegedly.
So
my quick start at
na wewe
that.
Redemptor.
Okay, go ahead.
Redemptor believes tutakuwa tunatafuta rais tukunywe chai, kumbe yako chini ya madhabahu anaabudu akihesabu pesa. Sio mimi nimesema, ni story tu tunajaribu kufuatilia. Justice for malizia alafu tuendelee.
Yeah, my quick stab at that, Redemptor, is that I'm reading politics in this, and I want you to walk with me to the beginning of the presidency. What he did, he brought in some evangelicals, the Macariokis, and all the guys to the State House, and he told them to walk around the place, the entire compound, to pray, including you could hear them saying, pray in tongues to cast out some demons out of this place. And one of the other phrases, go back to that recording, there was like, let's build an altar for God. I remember Rachel said, telling as they were praying, walking around, blah, 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 they were saying, let's build an altar for God. Now, to really actualize this, because he knows that the church put him to power, and this is politics 101, as a Western will explain about how religion and politics. So then, now to have to erect that physical altar for God, it's actually a response, as someone else said, that this was the promise to the religious group, especially the evangelicals. So they did the spiritual part of it to break down all those strongholds. Now here to actualize it. And as you've seen many people, even Itumbi trying to manipulate us today in his writing, is that, is it wrong to build a church for God? But you see, that's not what we are saying. Nobody says it's wrong to build a church for God. And then the other question he asks in his same question, I think it's one of the commenters, I don't know if it's him or someone else. And then he says, is it wrong to worship God? You see, now they're trying to manipulate this, but I can tell you, this whole game is that everything is slipping away. My last chance I have is the church. And which church? The evangelical, the prosperity one that Western scholars talks about Ethiopia. So I'll tell you, this is about what I promised you. And by the way, back in my really good religious without following the constitution, I always wanted us to build a church in the State House. I always talked about church in the State House. If you met me a few years ago, I'll be the one championing for this. But
You're
guess
part
what?
of the problem.
No, we are redeemed. We are redeemed now. Our brains have been taken. So that's what I would say. That's where the end. This is where this thing is going.
I want to allow. No, I think
Can
everybody
I
would
speak
like
now?
to chime in. Japonji, I'm allowing you to speak. Everybody wants to chime into this conversation, so I'd like us to really try and allow each other to. And my apologies, but it's an interesting conversation, and we're here. We're not going anywhere. Sisi ni mashetani, tuliambiwa tupende tuspende, kanisa lazima ijengwe. Japonji, I'd like to have you, and then Limenik, then DT Mwaniki, then Sam. After that, I'll have West. In that order. So Japonji.
Thank you so much, Obeds and Eli, and to start. But today, Obeds and Eli, to your disappointment, today I'm not in the Shetani side. Ninyi mkae pande ya Shetani. Today
Sawa.
I'm on the good side today.
We sisi tumebaki nyuma, waenda na Yesu.
Yes. So okay. So I was waiting for someone to say or to quote where the president said that after his long term, after his term, his long-term calling is to be an evangelist. That's what he had said before, but he didn't tell you where. So this church is building Redemptor. He will be the pastor of this church. He said that last year, September 2024.
After he's retired.
Yes, he said that after retirement, he will be the pastor of the church. That has been his long-term calling. So I don't know why you are confused about that. Anyway, now that you remember that, let's move on. These articles you people are reading about constitution, I don't know. You people, I don't know why you think this guy doesn't know that he's going against the constitution, or you think it's the first time that he has gone against constitution. You know, this guy has been contravening constitution for, like, even if I can state the example of he went against the Kenya police to Haiti, KDF against protesters, those, I don't know, Article 240, 241, all those. So these are things that he has been doing. And why now? I mean, he's been doing this since, I don't know, since his term. So even himself is wondering that I went against this, against constitution, against my attorney general, but now I'm going against the same thing for church, and they think there's a problem. So I want you sometimes to put yourself in his shoes. And some people think he's very naive. He knows exactly what he's doing, and your response also sometimes is exactly what he's waiting for. And he's listening, by the way, because It was record time today. He spoke about the church, and there were reactions on social media. Within no time, he was responding, which means he's getting the feedback now. You don't have to wait for the next day. Okay, moving on. So sisi wenye tuko saidia nini ya Mungu, nyinyi mkae saidia shetani. Sisi, we just want him to continue building that church. It's 8,000 capacity, so we can register 7,800 Gen Z to go and help him, open that church. He just need to give us a date. That day that that church will be officially be opened, we go there. We want to see, this is a national monument. We want to see what kind of church. This is 1.2 billion church. I'm interested. I want to march there to State House, see in good faith with Bibles. That day we'll carry the Bibles. We want to go there, na sadaka, and pray with him, help him pray. We will be exactly 7,800, and then we leave 200 seats for people who work inside. So, nyinyi watu wa shetani, nyinyi mkae kando. Sisi tunaenda kuomba. We just need the date, and then we will be there. Moving forward, on a serious note, let's go back
Japonji mkiingia hapo hamtatoka, mtachinjiwa hapo.
Yeah, that's why we are going with the Bible Redemptor, and we will carry people like Olwande. Anyway, going forward to serious matters now. If you look at the Bible, it was translated into different languages. And then you look at the Constitution. You see, the Bible's widespread translation into local languages was driven by missionaries and religious organizations. This is like a form of cultural or religious indoctrination, And this brings in the spiritual and moral frameworks within communities from early age. The Constitution, by contrast, this represents a secular civic framework which has the rights and has not been translated as extensively, which potentially limits its accessibility and influence in shaping our civic education. Have you ever asked yourself that your grandmother at home cannot read that constitution yenye mnaringa na hapa ati article 1, article 2, ati we the people in your language ndio nini? Oyo wako wapi? Hiyo we the people constitution in Kijaluo. Why is it that the Bible iko kwa Kijaluo? That is the indoctrination that I think Weston was talking about. Since you go home, you are able to read that Bible in your mother tongue. Even someone would, but you look at the constitution, they are very slow. Do you think this is by accident? This is by design, So again, moving forward, some of us came from the civil service, these houses. Our fathers were civil servants. So mlikuanga na hizi nyumba za serikali. Unajua, some of you understand what I'm saying. So you will find that hii nyumba imetengenezwa but familia pia labda imeongezeka or something. So then your dad maybe akona pesa extra. Then he decides, let me make an extension huku and huku. Unaget, But the house does not belong to them. So they make that extension ya house, and you are able to live there. Alafu ile siku maybe anapigwa transfer na retire, anafanya nini? Anatoka. Sasa sisi tunasema kama Gen Z, vile ame-extend hiyo church hivyo, tuite, tukuje, tufanye nini? Tumsaidie kufungua hiyo. Inaitwanga aje Redemptor, hiyo chai ya kufungua church. That day, tuitwe, tukae chini, then we help him. That is what I'm talking about. Let's be positive, let's help him. Ifanyike faster before his term ends. We go there, tukunywe hiyo chai, he welcomes people. So I know I can see your hand, Obeds, as I learn. I had my notes ready. I was waiting for 2 hours. So something about money laundering, someone brought it so clear. And this is something about money laundering is that now this guy will have monopoly of money laundering, guys. He will bring all his friends, all those Tur Margarian, all those people he'll bring to the State House to pray, the Nigerian people. And he will tell you will see posters. There's a Nigerian commission coming for prayers. And 1,000, they have done their math so well, so that he will say, Sadaka imetoka 2 billion, 1 billion. Who are you? How will you defend that? They don't audit church, how we call it? They don't audit the church in a tithes or wherever. They don't. We know that, And when they wanted to do that, all the churches came out burning in flames, So That is very good. You have to think along those lines. Lastly, I want people who are here to understand the meaning of 1.2 billion. Salary ya Ruto, since he became president, has been 54 million only. The remaining term at earn 39 million. If you add this, the maximum he can earn is 94 million. Okay? So it will take Ruto 60 years to earn 1.2 billion. I'm trying to put that into context so you understand what 1.2 billion means. Thank you so much, Obets and Eli and the speakers. Bless.
Thank you, Japonji. Very well put. The teacher you are, you've done an excellent job. And you know, Gen Zs have been asking they want to occupy State House. Mnataka kwenda huko, president ana nyumba yenye atawa accommodate. Anawajengea nyumba, mwende
Obets.
huko kwa wapole.
Obets, acha kututrigger, Obets.
I'm not triggering you. I'm just telling you the truth. Honestly, you've been insisting you want to go to State House.
Now we have a reason.
You know, hata jenge nyumba ndio mkuwe accommodated. Mtaenda kulala wapi kama kuna nyumba?
Sasa nyumba ya baba yangu kuna makao mengi.
Pass.
Okay?
I will
Shida ni
put
moja. Mkisikia kuna nyama choma zinanukia hiyo area. Usifikirie mko sio hell, mtakuwa mnasaidiana na watu wa
Bas.
Pan Forest.
Limenik. Karibu sana.
Asante Robert. Sijui nianze wapi. One of the biggest problems in my notice, we get triggered so quickly, tuko so emotional. You are in for a root shock. Hawa wanasiasa, they are going to make your hearts, your emotions go into roller coaster. Watakupigisha makona. So this is my rational, personal opinion about this whole thing about the church in State House. I have no problem with it. Our constitution is very, in the preamble, it talks about supremacy of God. This is the current president is a man, aliimbiwa si uchawi ni maombi after he won the election. So to him, he believes that because God made him president, he owes God a favor, or rather a duty of some sort. That is what I'm thinking. Maybe that's how the rationale behind the building of the church. My issue is the timing and the source of the funding. Nimesikia mtu akicalculate salary yake from since he got inaugurated in 2022, but before that, I don't think he was earning zero, or not. The only source of income is not salary. So mimi ningetaka tu kuwa curious if the president is kind enough to allow us now to question the source of the funding for the construction of the church. Now that amesema mwenyewe anatoa pesa zake personal. Sina shida so long as he can explain up to the last shilling mahali ametoa. Issue ingine is so that we don't feel, other religion doesn't feel like they are being sidelined. Nimeona Waislamu wameomba wajengewe pia msikiti. If they get someone who is philanthropic enough to build a mosque in State House, fine. Another issue, it is the location of the church actually inside the State House. Because hizo machache zenye nimeona kwa handle ya government of Kenya, they are next to, someone has tried to explain some sort of servants' quarters or something. My presumption is every Sunday, these people who live in State House, because it's not the president's family alone who live there. Kuna workers and staff and everybody. They will need a place to pray. Nimeona it's a interdenominational chapel. I have no problem with it. I've been to, there is a police station in Eldoret, actually. Residence of police officers. It's a residence of the police officers. They have an interdenominational chapel. There is even a mosque. And it's a public place. One of the largest referral hospitals in Kenya, the national one. Sitake kutaja jina. Ni story na wapea. The hospital decided to build a church inside the hospital. The Muslim staff complained. Wakajengewa mosque. kidogo watu wa SDA wakasema hapana, tuwezi ombea hiyo ya ordinary Christians, tunataka church yetu, ikabidi wajenge ya SDA. So it's been like a continuous building of prayer houses within the hospital, and it's a public facility. So maybe we need some law to cater for that. Mi sina shida na kanisa ijengwe. I would not want to get into the legal bit of it. I'm not a lawyer myself. Issue yangu is the timing, the priority, and the source of funding, and the legal issues, the legal implication. Kuna mtu ameuliza, should we, and there are any requirements for you to put up any structure? Kuna kuanga na some, even for your own house, inside your own farm, kuna kuanga unahitaji some permits or something. When you want to put up a structure in State House, do you need some authorization from some authority somewhere? So hizo ni vitu tungastahili kuongelea. Kwa wale watu wanataka kuspin some conspiracy theory that, oh, it is an altar or something. I've even seen the Anglican Archbishop Ole Sapit anasahau hiyo church ya All Saints hapo ilijengwa na Freemasons. Imagine, did you know that? Na anaombea hapo tu, ana shida na hiyo. Lakini akiona, anyway, I don't want to get into. Mimi, our politicians, I usually block them. I don't want to get them, whatever they do or say, I don't want to get them trigger me. Mimi, imefika mahali, I just block my emotions. I detach myself fully because I know these are typical Kenyan politicians and wako hivyo tu. It's just the way they are. Thank you, Obed.
Thank you, Limenik. I'm surprised. Wajua Ruto ni mtu anapenda kukula neno na uongo. And you're expecting him atuambie anatoa wapi 1.2 billion. All the best while at it. DT Mwaniki, you've turned to make your contribution, then have Sam and then Weston.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Nishukuru sana. Nimesikia points. Everybody has valid points and they are very tangible. Lakini sasa hii kanisa, let us pray God first for the Christians. And this church is not meant for any goodwill. That is my perception. It's not meant for any goodwill.
Linus, please mute your mic. Wait for your turn to be called to speak.
Oh, so can you hear me?
Okay.
Am I clear?
DT, I can hear you. Linus, please mute your mic.
Thank you. So, ile kitu jamaa amefanya, we live in a spiritual world, flesh and spiritual world. What this guy is doing and what is happening right now, we're being attacked. And this world belongs to the devil because the prince of darkness is in this world. So what is happening right now is division. And I don't believe there is any religion, Muslim, Christian, any religion that speaks hate or sees the other as better, because we all have beliefs. So our beliefs are all equal morals and values. We all have the same morals and values. The thing that is happening right now is the church is being built in the office of the president of Kenya. That is the problem, and that is what is bringing division. It is bringing division because we have an agenda for good godly governance.
I want to be clear. The office of the president is in town and State House is somewhere up here.
Okay.
So those are two different places in my view.
Okay, in your view. Okay. Let me say that is the State House is different, whatever State House is, but that belongs to Kenya. So it's like an office to me, in my view. So it's like an office because that is where all the meetings happen. That is where everything happens. And just like somebody said earlier, so the Muslims will not be attending there because this guy might be saying the meetings happen in the church. So what about the strong Muslims? They won't be attending the meeting. So the bottom line is, it is trying to bring division in the country for the people to break upon their agenda, looking for godly governance, integrity. So watu waachane, wakiangalia hapana, au Wakristiano wamesaidika, hata wana makanisa huko, mtu ni wao, and that is spiritual, and that is what is happening right now. So My agenda is even what is the money is not any bother to me because we know him and we know what he's doing for those who know him. And that is not a problem. The moral of the story here is let us stay united to search these agendas of church imekuja kujengwa Statehouse. Hizo ni distractions, petty distractions, and distractions will come again. Tomorrow something else will come, and the main agenda will not be achieved. The main agenda to seek godly governance, good godly governance, accountability, and integrity will clear all this out. The Constitution of Kenya is very clear, very clear. And what is happening right now, the Constitution is being broken down. And the Gen Z are revolting for the Constitution to be upheld, which everybody, and that is why they're saying drain the swamp. When the swamp is drained, then that is clear. And even those churches will be dealt with then, even if he builds. But I say we pray in all our religions, let's pray to our Creator that this does not happen. Even these things are in the Bible. Even King Ahab was asking Elijah, you're the troubler of Israel. So the president is asking the Gen Zs, you're troubling Kenya. So, and Elijah told him, no, you're the one who's troubling God. And King Ahab built the altars and all that, and he sacrificed his sons, all those things there. So that is from my Christian point of view. I'm a strong Christian. I'm a faithful Christian. I do not look down on any other religion. I believe we love each other. So let us all unite and love each other to follow the main agenda, to seek for integrity, godly governance, accountability. Let that be the main goal in everything. We all have our different religions. I respect everyone in their religion. Let us all have one agenda, seeking accountability and integrity for good governance. The swamp to be drained and everything will be clear. That's my submission. Thank you for that time.
Thank you, DT. You say accountable leadership, and that's what everybody wants. How we go about it, if you ask the president, he's doing his best, absolute best, and he has achieved a lot of things in that direction. It's just that Kenyans don't tend to see what he's doing. So he has an argument, and validly so, according to him. Let's hear what Sam Mokai has to say about this conversation.
Thank you, Obedi. If I were Ruto, honestly, I will build a bigger church. 1.2 billion is still not that much money. And this is the reason. It is much easier if people are opposing me, and the reason they are giving is because I build a church, compared to that I killed 60 young people who came to the streets to agitate for good governance. So if I'm able to shift that conversation from 60 people being killed, others disappeared, others maimed, others killed in police stations intentionally, then there is an opposition that is, there are young people who do not want to see or hear anything I say. Then I think I'll have to shift that conversation. And if I'm able to hold on to the people that still believe that I'm a child of God, then I can go for them first. So I will build a church and tell them, I'm still that righteous man who is your president. And if you consider me for the second term, I think I'll do better. If I build a church at Statehouse, it will give me the legitimacy to continue contributing in churches because that is my main business and that is where I find people. So if I come to your church and I give you 20 million, I'll tell you, this is not that much. I have also built a church from my own sources of 1.2 billion. So you're likely to believe in what I tell you. Number two, I am the same person who gave Kenyans a public holiday because I wanted them to go and plant trees. Climate change was pushed by multinationals. One of them being the bigger brother, we all know. They are so passionate about climate change, and they said, you know, we can even come up with an idea of carbon credit. So I think we can, what if we give Kenyans a public holiday to make it popular that, you know, we embrace what you're saying. Please, can you give us more monies? And we continue planting these trees. As a result, we are saving the planet. So it's a way of getting money and to be loved by Big Brother. And if I went to China, for example, no, not for example, for real, I went to China and I said, you know, my country's relationship with China is a new world order of how big countries will have to relate with African countries that are developing. So therefore, if you don't look at us properly, we might not give you business. We will turn the other way around. And this information found itself into the tables of Bigger Brother. So that thing was mentioned in Senate in the US, and they reacted to it and they said, you know, we have to look at what is our relationship with Kenya, because they have said they are charting a new world order with our enemy. So that, and now that the leadership has changed, we have someone who claims to be a Jew and who has said, you know, I am going to snatch phones from classrooms and I will replace those phones with the 10 commandments. As a developing country, I will take it a notch higher. It's not just having 10 commandments. We can have the biggest office in the land, or the state house having a church that is very big. 8,000 is not a small number. So that I am in, there is some form of tandemity between what I do and what you claim to do. So that if I come to your place, you don't play me a video of me killing young people, just like the South African gentleman found himself on hot soup, that he said, you know, can you turn off the lights, play that video, because you're killing Afrikaners. And, you know, that is not something that I would want happen. So if they say that these people are opposing me because I build a church, I think it will be better. So there is a lot of thinking, and this is not by accident. He has just come from Britain. He comes back home, and by some miracle, we see it on the headlines that, you know, this guy is building a church. It is just more than what we see. Ruto doesn't do anything by chance. He has his own calculations, his own popularity, and he knows he has lost some section of Kenyans who do not actually agree with him on whatever he does. So I have to force my way in. I have to force myself on people, but then I cannot lose the young people, and then I lose the international community. And now that we have a war, and that war is like you're persecuting Jews, I must build a church so that I am seen, that I uphold the principles of Christianity, and I embrace the Jews the best I can. Muslims can make noise, but I can deal with them. There's no problem with that. So we are dealing with a problem in itself. Thank you. I mean, that is controversial, but it is way beyond what nothing happens by accident. Thank you, Obed.
There's nothing controversial about what you're saying. It's exactly how it should be, honestly. And that's the view he has, which is from rose-tinted eyes. But again, sure, we all have different variations of what we see of him. Weston, your second shot at this. After that, I'll have Eve and then Riek.
I think, Obed, there's something you might have missed out. Matt has been waiting to speak to us.
Oh, sorry.
It would be unfair
Sorry, yeah, I think so.
To go
Apologies.
to the next speaker, if you don't mind.
I totally get it. Yeah, so Matt, and then let's have Weston.
Oh, thank you so much, Eli, for that, and Obed. Yeah, so I think I would agree with what Monique had said, that what Ruto is trying to do, in my opinion, is to consolidate the evangelical vote and also to basically to create as many fractures as possible within the Kenyan population, because the ethnic fractures are clearly not enough for him. He wants to have as many fractures as possible, along which he can divide people and then buy different leaders. As for the cost of the 1.2 billion, I don't think that Ruto wanted basically to steal 1.2 billion. If he wanted to steal 1.2 billion, there are many ways that he could have stolen that amount of money. Compared to the amount of money that they've been stealing, including using methods like through affordable housing, I don't think he necessarily needed to build a church to steal that money. Then on them on in terms of the church being grounds for the staff to worship in, I don't think it's proper. Also, in line with what Western was talking about, to have this mix of religion and the workplace. So I think that, and I think another speaker has talked about it. I think that workplaces and places of worship should be detached. They should not be the same. They should not be the same place. So if it was a church, if you work at Statehouse, if you are in the GSU camp that's inside Statehouse and you want to go to church, you guys go to church outside Statehouse. Otherwise, you have this situation that's just a mess where where there will be someone who will be left out, right? Yeah, and I think that's let me see. I had a few other points that I wanted to say, but I think I've forgotten for now. Yeah, so I'll let Weston speak. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Matt. I didn't intend to overlook you. It's that sometimes it gets a bit overwhelming. But thank you for your contribution. So then we have Eve and then Riek. Weston, if you can hear us, would you like to speak?
Obed, one thing I will tell you is this. I think you will listen to me carefully. Privileged people in Kenya, privileged people in Kenya are very reckless. They're very reckless. And you're privileged because you hold a position that is prominent. You're privileged because of the kind of training you have had in your life. And therefore, it's expected that your understanding of things should be markedly different. You're privileged because you have got options. If Kenya was to go up in flames, you could just take your briefcase, get into the airport, and you leave the country. You will be watching the country through CNN or BBC. You're privileged. So anybody who has got those options must be very careful, measured. They restrain themselves in the way they talk. I'm saying William Ruto is not the worst president we have had in Kenya. He's not. So if you attribute to him Kiambaa massacre, who are you attributing to the massacres in Naivasha, Nakuru? Can you name names there? Because the Kiambaa massacre appeared at the ICC together with other massacres all over the country. So you have to explain to Kenyans why you deliberately overlook the massacres in other parts of the country and only accent the massacres in Kiambaa. Are you really committed to Kenya and its stability? Are you? You are not. You aren't. Are you really committed to justice? You are not. Do you think that all lives in Kenya matter? You don't think they do. You don't think they do. So why suddenly this amnesia? I think it was Lemony who talked about si uchawi ni maombi. Well, people who can remember that was the slogan in 2013. Si uchawi ni maombi. So how come suddenly maombi is not what we want? But it is maombi that those who supported that ticket were telling us that ni watu tumeombea, we've prayed for these people. God has ordained these people. I said that. Si uchawi ni maombi. Suddenly we don't want maombi. Hypocrisy. And those who thought they won elections in 2013 will tell others, accept and move on. Do you people remember that slogan? Accept and move on. You recall? What have we done? What have we done for the country? How can we give power to such people? Listen, what have we done? No, accept and move on. You must accept defeat. We forget. How convenient. We forget. And then, if when you were at school, you were not allowed to take alcohol and rock up in class, it would be so egregious. No teacher, no principal would tolerate that. You risk expulsion. To take alcohol, liquor, and appear in class, you'll be expelled. Why would you give a president who appears in public drunk a free pass? Why would you do that? No, which school did you go to? Where you to your classroom with some bottle of beer you could drink while the teacher was teaching? Or on a weekend, you could go look for alcohol, and then you'll be drinking it in the course of the week. Why do we give Uhuru Kenyatta a free pass? A president who used to appear in public drunk? Or when we are told people are drinking and boozing at the State House, why do we think State House can be desecrated like that? Why do we think so? And then we think, no, we could tolerate this. I think this one is doing is worse. No, what is awful, wrong is awful, regardless of whoever is doing it. It's just wrong. And we have a problem in Kenya. We have a problem.
I like the fact that you're pointing out that we have had these bad manners for a long time.
Is somebody talking?
And it's a bit.
Yes,
Yes,
Eli
Weston,
is
can you
talking,
hear me?
Weston.
Yes, I can hear you.
Kindly mute for a second. I need to ask you a question. I love the case you're trying to prosecute before us, but I also have my conservation in terms of we keep talking about changing and becoming better. But when we raise these concerns and you raise the aspect of us being blind to the past and what William Ruto is doing lesser than the other evil, are we not in a way agreeing that we cannot change? Because that's what you're telling us. My thinking is Kenyans have come to the point of being able to separate good and bad. In the past, even if we had what in our case would be a bad financial investment by our leaders, very few of us paid attention to the numbers because all we cared about was what is on our table. But today, if you come up with a project and we realize that the constitution now is demanding of us as Kenyans to have what we'll call public participation, don't you think it's a bit unfair for you to say we didn't judge the others and now we need to start go back to history before we judge the present one? That is my question to you, because I would love for us to progress with the intention of achieving a solution rather than blame and fault game. That's my question.
No, Eli, I'm not blaming, I'm not fault finding. If you invoke Yamba, that's history, that's the past. I'm asking, why do you selectively invoke it? That's not blame or casting. If you have gone to the past, okay, you've decided to go to the past, go the whole hog. Why do you selectively invoke the past? It's not about less. I know about mass atrocities. I know.
Unlike what happened in the past, and I've muted so that I remove the echo, I'll unmute and you proceed. Unlike what happened in the past, today Kenyans are in a position to actively engage, question, critique, and even call to attention some of the things that our leaders are doing or have been doing, minus our consent. So today, as we speak, Eli, if he sees there's a problem with the budget that was passed by Parliament, he actually has the right to question why Parliament approved that budget, yet it didn't go through specifics channels of having that approval. So, Weston, the reason why there's an eye on the person of President William Ruto is because President William Ruto is the current head of state. When Matiang'i said he wants to vie as president, people have reminded him of his sins. Even though he will have a flock of people around him, we will still remind him of that skunk that he's walking with. So is Gashagwa, so are the rest. So what I'm trying to dissuade you from is actually saying we cannot now bring everybody on board. Everyone will be called to test and everyone head will be put on the chalkboard. That is what I believe. But go ahead, I'm going to unmute and allow you to present. Western, you're not speaking, kindly.
Muted. It's muted. You had muted it. Eli, I think we're speaking at cross purposes. Honestly speaking, we are. First, I have no room for hierarchies of life. That's the point I make. There's no hierarchy of life. I make that abundantly clear. I'm saying it's not about comparing the past and the present. It's not that. I'm saying if you decide to take a particular approach in your reading of Kenyan issues, go the whole hog. Don't be selective. That's the point I'm making. I don't hold brief for anybody. But I'm saying if you choose to hold brief for someone and you selectively ignore the past, you're not part of the solution you're looking for, you're part of the problem. Because you invoke the past expediently for political reasons, the way these politicians are doing. They will invoke the past for political point scoring. Well, if you're not into active politics and you're committed to Kenya, then you cannot play favorites. You can't play favorites. So I'm not saying you compare William Ruto to Uhuru Kenyatta. I don't do that. I'm not saying compare William Ruto to Mwai Kibaki. I don't do that. This is a continuum. That's the position I hold. It's a continuum. They're one and the same thing. That's the point I'm making. It's not like somebody committed more atrocities than the other. No, I don't do that. There are people who do that and have a problem with that. That's why I raise the issues I do. So, in effect, you're not challenging what I'm saying because what I'm saying is that we have to be consistent. And I don't think there's a problem with that. What I'm saying, if we ignore the past, let's bury the past in totality. Don't go and look for certain graves and leave other graves. That's being cynical. That's the point I'm making. If we want justice for Kenyans, let's accord justice to all Kenyans across the board because they deserve justice. That's the point I'm making. And my position is unimpeachable if you were to look at it, or anybody who looks at it is unimpeachable. I don't hold brief for William Ruto. I don't hold brief for anybody. I hold brief for Kenya, which why I started by saying, if you're privileged, you're not going to play favorites because you've got options in life. But if you are not, it's when you are going to follow people here and there. Oh, let me follow this. This person was drunk at Statehouse. No, we can forget about that. Okay, why do we forget? And we are talking about the office of the president, the Statehouse being a symbol of national unity. Is it for drunkards? Why do you forget that? These are the points I'm making. And I don't think I'm being partial in the way I'm reading Kenyan politics. Anybody from Uganda or Burundi listening to me will have no problem appreciating my line of thinking, even if they don't understand what's going on in Kenya. So I'm saying, if you turn William Ruto into the skunk, the greatest skunk Kenya has had, these problems will be there tomorrow once he's gone. They'll be there, I can guarantee you, because they're structural. They're structural issues.
Weston, I totally, if you don't mind, you mute just for me to probably clarify something. And I totally agree with the argument posed that, we can't selectively deal with the issues and, point William Ruto as the worst that has been. The reality is that our governance structure and the way we've run government for the longest hasn't worked for everybody. But unfortunately, it has gotten to a point where maybe because of the youth bulge and the problem that this country has had, there's a consequence of those bad leaderships has brought to the fore an issue where there's massive unemployment. There is a situation where young people are frustrated and they don't even know what to do and which direction to take. And it has become, because he is the face that is in charge, he's being put to the sword partly because he's in charge. But if you listen to the young people, they say, drain the swamp. And by draining the swamp, the demand is that whatever that is associated with the past, we do not want. So Ruto is exactly the face that has, unfortunately for him, he probably tough luck for him. But the validity of your argument to the extent that yes, we cannot do things selectively, that is true, and the young people are demanding that there is a total uprooting of the system. Realistically, that might not happen immediately. It's a progressive thing because we've been here for more than 60 years. I don't know whether you feel still we do not appreciate the fact that what you're saying is correct.
Well, what I'm saying is this. Don't compare these people. That's the point I'm making. Don't compare. Don't say we are worse off now than we were before because you are not representative of Kenya. There are many Kenyans who are worse off under Uhuru Kenyatta. There are many Kenyans who are worse off under Mwai Kibaki. You may not have been worse off. What I'm saying, it may be because you're privileged, but you can't speak that because you had it nice then, you don't know anybody who had it worse. So things were good. They were not good for all Kenyans. Things were bad for poor people in Kenya, even under Mwai Kibaki. Things were bad for poor people in Kenya under Uhuru Kenyatta. Facts. So I'm saying, I'm going to speak for myself. So speak for yourself. Don't speak for Kenyans. Let this young person speak for themselves. Let this other person speak for themselves. That's the point I'm making. It's not hard to appreciate that. I hear a lot about comparisons. No, the Matiang'i was better. I don't know, Uhuru Kenyatta was better. Well, I can tell you, Mwai Kibaki, and I'm saying people are here who had not come of age before. Don't come to these spaces and, display and exhibit ignorance. Being young does not give you an excuse to be ignorant. I keep on saying. In fact, when you say you have got a lot of gadgets at your disposal, which why these things should not come as a surprise to you. You should take advantage of that technology to appraise of yourself of things that happened when you were still young, or if you were at that time you were not born. But people come on this place and no, you see, I was not there. You are not there, and then you lack the capacity to authoritatively speak about things that are happening now. Because you don't have the advantage, the benefit of what precedes what
But I think we are experiencing some up and down with the Western's line. So we leave it at that so that we can be able to allow also other speakers to proceed. There's quite some noise coming from Western's mic. So I think, Western, we had your point, it's home. We are trying to really understand where we are headed. And for the sake of this space, I must actually admit, none of us in this space compared William Ruto and other leaders in the past. In fact, it's you who brought up the issue of drunkards. We didn't mention that. But thank you for your observations. We do take them with a lot of, respect. That said, you had queued in to have Eve. And Eve, you've been waiting to submit. What happens is when you mute everyone, you will be required to unmute from your end in order for you to proceed. So I'm going to unmute you and allow you to make your submission. Eve, good evening and welcome to the talk. What do you think about this Kanisa na Ikulu thing? Eve, you can unmute and proceed if you're listening to us.
Thank you. It was unmuted for a very long time. I was wondering. Thank you for the space. Thank you for the time. Hii kitu ya kanisa na Ikulu, I think so very many of us speakers have fronted so very many ideas of what it might be like. At the end of the day, I'm of the opinion that this thing might be spiritual. I'm also of the opinion that this thing is business. That money laundering thing is not so far-fetched. It's actually, it makes the most logical sense in all this mix-up. And I also wanted to chime in on what one of the speakers actually said, that being emotional, it's not all about being emotional when it comes to conversations like this.
Am I the only one here that is having problems with the call? Obeds.
Yes, I think Eli is having issues with the
Yeah,
speakers. Can
because
yeah,
we can hear quite well.
we can hear everybody very well, but Eli, when it comes up, it's just kind of whatever muffled or something like that.
So Eva, please prosecute your point.
My point was, I was trying to say that the current situation, when it's coming to a point whereby we are taking our political voice and putting it to account, whereby we have it known to the politicians that this is how we feel. We are not letting you assume that this is what your people are saying. No, we have a voice. We want to put it forth towards you to say, okay, this is now what is happening. We have all this technology that is all around us that you can actually tap in and listen to us directly on what we want to do. So for the notion of being emotional, it's not actually being emotional, it's just being quick to answer because we have the correct tools to use for us to answer the politicians right from the time that they actually give out a statement. I'm sure Redemptor might give me zile za kitambo, might remind us of days in the past whereby when a politician gave a statement, if it was today, you used to find it the next day, maybe in newspaper or hiyo siku jioni when you're watching news. Now we have these spaces, we are making use of these spaces. If Ruto is listening, yes, we want our voices to be heard at the end of the day. Kanisa ijengwe, tutaenda, venye Japonji alisema tutaenda. We have an avenue ya occupy State House. We will go. At the end of the day, it's a state symbol. I understand. It's a state symbol. It needs to remain a state symbol. So very many people can come in there and have, Ruto is just there for 5 years. Potentially, and I hope to God that is 5, only 5. Because we are coming to a place whereby saizi we get to really ask the deep questions. Kitambo ilikuwa, this politician has said this, you shrug it off and you're like, oh, he has said it. Doesn't bother me. Now you easily, if that statement is said, you easily look deeper and you say, okay, fine, this is going to affect 1 or 2 people that I know. How am I going to shape a conversation with my peers and say, we need to actually look at this and say that this is not good, it's not part of right and wrong. Ila alichukua point yangu yenye nilikuwa nataka kusema, we have come to a place whereby we know right and wrong and we can easily voice our opinion about it. Whether they want to hear us or not, it's not up to us. They can close their ears, but at least it's on the record now that we have actually said that this is not what we want. And if it's something, and if it's a good idea, and we see that the method at which it's coming about is wrong, we say, okay, fine, you should have done this and this and this and this. Why is it not in place? What's happening? What's not happening in the mix? So that's my take.
Thank you very much. Eve, we appreciate you also adding your voice to the call. Looks like it is one of those evenings everyone has something to talk about when it comes to the Ikulu and the church. This is normally a very short space, but the interest around the conversation has required us to go beyond our normal performance. And that means tumeongezewa mishahara. See, you clap for us. We've done a great job. Speakers, msikae hivi hivi. Tumefanya kazi nzuri sana. And for those of you who are listening in, I know you hate it that you can't access the chat section. If you want to add your voice to this and you can't pick up the mic, probably stuck in traffic, just respond to the tweet of this space and be able to look into some of those chats. That said, I believe most of our speakers that are here have already made their submission, but we still have Riek. Then we'll have, after Riek, we'll follow. Okay, Redemptor, I see your hand is up. Redemptor, is there something I've missed out before I have Riek?
Very quickly, Ruto is the worst president Kenya has ever had in terms of documentation. The straw that broke the camel's back, and I was responding to Western. I don't know why he gets triggered every time he hears Kiamba. I would have made a summary if I had time about the worst massacre this country has ever experienced that is undocumented. Unfortunately for him, 2024-2025 is the most documented bloodbath this country has ever experienced. That's what I wanted to say. If you give me a minute later, I'll summarize that massacre. Asante.
Thank you, Redemptor. And I think for us tonight is a very intentional conversation, not because I stand here to hate my president. No, I stand here to disagree with the decisions he's making on behalf of this country, because these are the decisions that will affect you, I, and our families, and at large, the generations to come. So this is not about the person in Ruto. It's about the things that are represented with the presidency of Ruto. Obeds, again, your hand is up.
Yes, for I like, it is good you speak for you, and glad that you've said that. But the truth is, we have two things here. We have issues with the decisions that are being taken, but the personality also influences the decisions that are being made. So there is no way we cannot have a problem with the personal. But that as said, as it may, he has a responsibility. He has a big responsibility to ensure that being a symbol of national unity, he has to rethink how he speaks, weigh his words, and not just blabber. He's not me and you who can say anything. I can say whatever I want. But a president who has a responsibility has to make sure he's a diplomat. Number one, he's a president. People look up to him. He can't just talk the way he did. You can't tell people you do not have an apology to make. I mean, you don't just talk like that. And being that he's the president who has a PhD that nobody has ever had, he should do better. But now his record speaks differently. It's so checkered and so bad. So I'm just trying to dissuade you from feeling like you're attacking him. And in reality, we are attacking him, his person, and the decisions he makes, because his personality influences the decision that we're experiencing today. And you can't differentiate those two. My apologies again to you, but not to him.
Thank you, Obez. I was taught as a parent, you tell a child the thing you did was a stupid action. You don't call the child stupid, but looks like Kenyans are not planning to do that to this child. Rick Oyogi, good evening to you and welcome. Eric, what do you have to say? Eric Oyugi, going once, going twice. We don't have you. I'll go to the hands that are there, and in order to try and have this conversation moving, Kabuya, you've joined us, and great to have you back on the conversation. It is a matter of leadership, probably not responding to the needs or alive to the reality that we are living. 1.2 billion approximated in terms of church building, and Obed, I rarely read what government bloggers write, but this one really annoyed me. So you'll allow me to read part of that.
Unapenda pressure.
Hata sasa imeenda, umeongea mpaka imeenda. Mbona uko na hiyo roho mbaya? There was somebody I was trying to read his tweet.
If you keep following those people, they'll annoy you.
I don't follow them. I don't follow them. They
don't
just
mute them. Mute them. They are stupid people, man.
All right. Okay, I think I got that. I really have to bring this up for context, and also not to annoy all of you, but to show you how stupid we can actually think. It is embarrassing. And looks like the heavens have decided that tweet is not going to come up. But there's an individual who keeps saying to us how we need to understand why the money they're planning to spend. So did you know that over 2,000 people live within the Statehouse compound with their families? Whenever someone passes away or there's an event, gatherings are often held under tree. For the first time, a president is establishing a church and a multipurpose hall. Sasa hata sio kanisa, imekuwa multipurpose hall. Watu wa dining hall na Bull Dance High School, mikono juu kwa hewa, mnajijua. Ninajua that's the time Marabu Stocks discovered what Janja Farm is. And that said, for the first time, a president is establishing a church and a multi-purpose hall for them to meet in dignity. Yani watu wa serikali hawana dignity. There's a big space that holds a lot of people for them to come and do press conferences. But that's story for another day. President William Ruto.
Do you see how our collective intelligence is abused?
Sasa si ndio nakuambia, allow me to read. I rarely do, but allow me to read. Ni kuonyesha ujinga mbali imesimamia. Na tuko kwa stage ya ujinga, beba inaelekea State House. President William Ruto is setting up this church, not just as a place of worship, but also a multipurpose facility. Yani amerudia sentence mara mbili. ChatGPT, why do you embarrass people from State House? Anyway, but also as a multipurpose facility to honor the personal journey God has brought him. Shetani ni muongo. In fact, it is a promise he made to God that if elected president, he would build a church at State House, Kenya. Even the military has a chaplain, a spiritual guidance in essence of in leadership. Yani ujinga ringine itakani kwenda shule. Interestingly, there's a residence called Bishop Bond next to State House. It was originally built with the idea that the chancellor would need spiritual support, so it was included as part of State House plan. Over time, however, it became the official residence of the Anglican bishop. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, idiots have decided they're going to defend the issue of the church at State House. It has never been my habit to use very strong words, but I think the Spirit, and this must be the Holy Spirit, has led me to say that. Call out stupidity for what it is. Kabuya, mic is yours.
Thank you very much. Am I audible?
You are loud and clear, sir. Proceed.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I caught the discussion late. I was still at work. I was able to retweet one or two. And thank you for giving me a chance. I'm now settled the last 30 or so minutes. Very interesting thing that has happened here with this exposure of this project. My opinion, I'll connect it with some things I have an interest with. Matters of decolonization, matters of religion, the history of religion, the history of state, the history of culture. Let me make something clear that buildings, especially within the Christian tradition, buildings are not actually religious. They are not spiritual in purpose. They are cultural in purpose. Any Christian worth their salt will tell you that between the book of Matthew and Revelation, there was no building project ever. Even when money was being put at the feet of, it was said money was put at the feet of people like Peter. I mean, those fundraisers were possible. Or Paul is congratulating the church of Philippi for their fundraising efforts. There was never a project for buildings. When did buildings and where did buildings come from? Buildings in the name of building God something is actually a European tradition. And you'll see, even the style of building them, the style is always European. Is European architecture. The more Gothic it is, the better. Because I mean, if it's simply just a place of prayer, we could have had a few shrines that are made of nature, like some trees, a tree grove. So this denomination has 20 buildings and 20 nature shrines and 15 caves and 5 streams. but this is the sustaining of European weaponization of religion, so that when the European came, he came with his culture and said, this is how we have been worshiping God since Rome, not since Jerusalem, since Rome, since Constantine took over the Roman Empire. And all these people, just like you have politicians would come, and they were given a one-day bill, and they were told, well, if you're a citizen of Rome, then you're a member of the church. The church is now one of the ministries of government. The king is its head. The same way Charles III of the Anglican Church, no matter his personal ethic, the same way that at the UN and is an independent city-state. It's not a country, but it is an independent city-state. These are political institutions. That's the myth of separation of church and state. You cannot separate church and state as inherited from Europe, because church is inside of state. Church is state. The king is the head of government, even though constitutionally ceremonial, and is a supreme governor of the church. Even our bishops, it's just that they don't tell you, and that you will not find live proceedings. And with all due respect to anyone who is Anglican, this is not personal to you, but a critique of the religion. One of the oaths is to Charles and his seed upon taking office. You must swear to the sitting monarch and his seed. You must protect Charles and his seed, no matter where you serve. Because this is it's an Anglican church spread across the globe. It's not the African church, it's the Anglican. It's the Roman, it's a Scottish. So the issues of buildings to begin with, and I don't want to repeat wonderful contributions that have been done. My contribution is to expose the fact that a building is a continued continued and sustained weaponization of religion against the people. And where it is, that hapo inajengwa the right place, as someone has, I think it was where Olesapit now stays is opposite Statehouse, and it was put there for the very reason. The first and second estates of the realm, the clergy and the nobility, must always be in bed together to manage the commoners. So while we may clamp down on this, maybe tutapiga enough noise and he won't build it. Maybe he'll build it another time, or someone else who comes will build it, or someone will come and now build a mosque there. Or if he builds it and we have a Muslim president, he'll convert it into a mosque. The point is, buildings are not religion, and they will not infuse morality in that house. My proposal, popular proposal, not that it's going to be taken by any of his 200 advisors or himself, is we have a different type of theology, as I mentioned in a previous space we had. The brand of Christianity that was there in Latin America, especially the Catholic branch of Latin America, and a priests like Gustavo Gutierrez, Camilo Torres, and others, which is called liberation theology, is a theology for the low people, for the commoner, for the struggler, for the rabble, for the dregs of the earth, where God is a revolutionary, God walks barefoot, God is pro-poor, God is against the junta, etc., etc. And God can go to the bush, and it's the love of Jesus that the revolutionary serves inside the bush with. This is a very different thing. And this is the one that says, this is the one that will say, take this 1 point whatever billion and let's take it to Madare. Let's divide it between Madare, Mukuru, and Korogosho. In the name of religion, it's nataka kushukuru Mungu na mimi ni Mkristo. It's that brand. Otherwise, we'll keep having this sham of, okay, it's not this building, this 1 billion, let it be divided into the existing buildings that the president can be going around 3-4 favorite churches of his. But if we can change from the colonial religion to a revolutionary Christianity, because Jesus was revolutionary. In this reading of religion, Jesus is a revolutionary. Jesus is not in bed with Caesar. So there's no building that looks Gothic and, headed by the king of the time. This is a guy who hangs out with the poor and prefers the poor as long as they are the oppressed. He will only judge them as being moral after they come out of their poverty. With that said, let me make my final remark. There was someone who was making noise that kuna watu wanaonea mtu yuko. I think it was Redemptor who used the word, the proverb or the saying, the straw that broke the camel's back. There could be nothing wrong with the sitting president. And I personally do not think there is. I just think that in the game of musical chairs, that he became president at a time when the country was undergoing maybe what we may call a regular detox. And I have a theory. I look for papers to see if I can substantiate it, that every 20-something, between 20 to 25 years, Kenya has to detox through popular means of some sort. If it lines up with an election, well and good. If it doesn't look so nice. We can start with what has been happening now, 2024, 2025. 20 plus years ago, we had the ouster of Moi, but that just the Kibaki-led government did not end things. That thing continued throughout that time, all the way to 2007, 2008. And it was something popular. The people wanted change. Take that back, it goes to the 80s, to the 1980s, and we all know what happened in the 80s. All that intoxication of Kenyatta One, all his oppression and suppression manifested in the 80s. And I'm not talking about 82. I'm saying the 80s, when there was an agitation, we need a new constitution, which began in the 80s and took 10 years, to 92, when Section 2A was repealed. And it took another 10 years just to midwife almost that whole thing. So that's my theory. So kama wewe umepatikana with holding the compost bag, the music has stopped, and you might have been the best president. But sasa music imesimama, ngoma imezimikia wapi? The light was on you. It's you to face the music at that point. And I think together with that, the existing generation, no matter how bad the past was, you are alive now. You have a legitimate right to make noise about the life you exist now. I cannot complain about what my grandfather went through. That was his life that was compromised. My grandfather spent some time in Manyani. I can only imagine his pain when I'm told the stories or what he found when he came home. But I'm feeling my pain now. I'm the one who is feeling it. So it's unfair to tell somebody, wacha kupiga kelele kuhusu ule mtu wako sahi. Rudi jana. Ama nyinyi amkuwa jana, amujui uchungu ni nini. Mimi naisikia sahi, naijua sahi. I'm the one who has studied and my degree is useless. It's not my grandfather, it's me. I'm the one who had a Mwakenya. I was memorizing, I was doing study groups 4 years or 5 or 6. My grandfather tells me nice stories of Muzungus coming ati nje, ati unasikia mzae, like my dad alikuwa anapatia story ati wako high school, ati my employer walikuwa nakuja hapo nje kungoja ma student wa form 6 waandike kazi direct. Yani kazi was guaranteed. Hapo unafanya masters, masters imekuwa diploma. Siku hizi tunaitwa graduation, nasema naenda ya nini na huyu jamani jobless. What is he celebrating? Unatupikia ya nini? Hiyo donge tafuta kutama kwanza. If you graduate, call us ukipata job. Usituite graduation party, tuite job party. There's a new housewarming. So it's unfair to go off on people who are feeling pain and they are protesting. I think that is insensitive. No matter the argument the brother had, to go off like that was a very strong rant. Muting and muting, same rant, I think is insensitive. People are not just angry from nowhere. People are not just rioting on the street, second year running from nowhere for nothing. I think there's a detachment. Huu ni mtu wako na uchungu yake. Kama mimi nilisikia 1980 ndio nilisikia uchungu na ilikuwa mbaya, nilisikia hiyo wakati. Wacha huyo kijana pia ako legit. And I think we should protect the citizens right now from both forces. This is what I call revisionism. When you tell people, why are you angry? You should have seen me. Why are you angry? You should have seen our dad. Mi ndio napitia sahi. And I feel it, and it's hampering my life. It's hampering the dignity of a citizen in the current setting. That person, that 20-year-old youth who has no experience, labda ajui kuoa ni nini, ajui kuzaa ni nini, hiyo anaisikia sahi, the citizen under the current constitution. That's my submission for now. Asanteni.
Definitely a very, very heated conversation based on where you sit on this aisle called governance. And of course, some of us have historical perspective to the conversation. Some of us are living the lived reality of where we are. You know, Kabuya, when you talk about people celebrating their jobs, I should add celebrating that you have a permanent pensionable contract, because some of these people actually get a day job and a few weeks later, the business they had been hired to work in scrambles and they have to go back on the streets looking for work. Obet is warning me about time. He's telling me wazee sasa macho imeanza kuwa mzito na ni wakati wao wa kwanza kutafuta jinsi ya kutumia kaluma, kwa sababu, you know, Obeds, we have to respect your age. But before we can do that, can I just clear a few hands here? Because Eve has been gracious enough, so is Marabu and Abdullah. And Betty Jerry, you are our next speaker. But because these people have been waiting here, let me just clear their mics, and then I'll come to you to make your first submission to the talk. Go ahead, that is Eve. A minute, if you don't mind.
Kabuya has actually touched on something that is so deep. That statement, that last statement, speaks to most of us. How are you celebrating your graduation without work? So where the shoe doesn't fit is what we feel. For me, I feel like taking, for example, I follow so very many creators on YouTube who talk about politics in the US. And I gather some similarities with what you're doing here, but as our chosen space is on Twitter. But what I see with the current progressive generation on YouTube is they speak their mind, they put their ideas on videos on what they feel about the politicians. And I think it helps us in such a way that we grow our conversation base while bringing people to the conversation, because we actually get to communicate our ideas to those people who don't listen to news but are always online. They are usually always online. TikTok, you pass through TikTok, someone says something political, but it's in a good way. You already have a listening ear, and that's what we are doing. The government is not thinking about take, for example, if some of you have time, go look at what Zora Mamdani has done with his campaign for the New York mayor. It's phenomenal in essence of campaigning. I just wanted to put that forth. Thank you.
Haya, walisema online hakuna kura, but ni sawa. Thank you, Eve, for that. Marabu, you wanted to clear something?
Am I coming through?
Sure you are.
You know, Eli, I stopped watching TV because of these people you call political analysts. You get a professor there, you get somebody. The problem with some of us is that when we get some form of employment and we are a bit comfortable, we want to, you know, structuralize everything. So before King Louis XVI, there were 8 other kings. King Louis wasn't the worst. In fact, there was a king called Robert II who was a cannibal. He used to eat his people, but people did not revolt. They revolted when King Louis XVI came centuries after. Why was that so? It was because of his attitude. King Louis XVI is the person who the wife told the people, if you cannot eat bread, eat cake. And that got him out. The other cannibal ate people in silence. People did not see it as something bad. If the former president Kibaki was to build a church, people would not take it so bad. despite the fact that it is illegal and against our constitution. But because of the man he was, the character he had, people would take it as something positive. But this one we have, this one, the one who lied to people, for people to put him there, people have lost trust with him because of his character. So if you tell us not to personalize it, not to make it personal, it is personal. You cannot fool an entire nation and say don't personalize it and want to. I always say this academic thinking is not what we want in this country. Because when you're going through a mess, most of the messes that we are in is because of academics. All these legislation, laws and legislation in parliament. Murkomen is a lawyer, for crying out loud. He goes and tells police to shoot people. These are educated people, but the way they are behaving, it's better to have that person who has never gone to school but has wisdom. So the character of the person and how he came to power through promises, that is what is making people look at him and want to put him accountable. It is also a deterrent to any other future leader. You know, I usually say William Ruto is a blessing to our country because we needed him for the people to wake up and for the leadership to be put on notice that any other person who is thinking that they'll come here and have it soft are going to be put to check. So if we are going to personalize it, it's going to go there. Because like a graduate say, you don't graduate and then you can't feed your family and then you can't have a job. And then you tell me I'm not going to make it personal so that somebody on top there feels comfortable. No, it's not going to happen like that. Thank you very much for the time.
Eli, can I have a right of reply? Because people are talking about me without naming me, which in itself is an indication of lack of integrity. Can I have a right of reply?
Yes, you shall. Just give us a few more opportunity for the new speakers, and you will definitely have that. If you don't mind, there was one more person I wanted to give an opportunity. Abdullah, you can do a minute. Please make it a minute. Matt, also a minute, and then we go to Betty, who has been waiting for too long.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, and I will try to make it a minute. And thank you. But I had a problem with, I agree so much with Western, but I had a problem today with Western. One thing, in 2017, we were not talking about being tribeless and deplatforming demigods and political kingpins. Now we are talking about it. Does it mean we are doing something wrong right now because we did not do it in 2017? Or probably people did not do it at that time? The other thing is that you are speaking the language that President William Ruto wants us to speak, that we actually hate him as an individual. I have no problem with President William Ruto as an individual because people do. I do not get attracted by William Ruto's phrasing or whatever he talks about. I am interested with these policies. Let me put it to you this way: that people did not like Uhuru Kenyatta at all and still do not like Uhuru Kenyatta. If people liked Uhuru Kenyatta, they could have supported his BBI thing. People were against BBI. People were against BBI. Even the people from Mount Kenya. The other thing, if people were so much into Uhuru Kenyatta and other leaders, they could have voted his project. The other thing, do you really remember that William Ruto talked about state capture? If William Ruto did state capture, we could not be having so much of these problems. People could not have voted William Ruto if they liked Uhuru Kenyatta, and William Ruto was the guy who was saying that I am coming for the dynasties, for the leaders who stole your funds, for the leaders who did this and that. So it is President William Ruto who has actually shown that he's just a liar. We do not have a problem with President William Ruto. I actually dislike Uhuru Kenyatta until the day that Ruto showed me that he can actually be the worst. The other thing is, most of the things right now are on social media. Kenyans are very, 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 they are on social media and they can be able to scrutinize things. Previously, that might not have been able to, that thing was not there. The other thing, they depended on people like Raila Amolo Odinga to tell them scandals are happening in government. Right now, we don't need a kingpin to tell us there's a scandal, there's a Eurobond. No, we do not need that at the moment. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Abdullah, for paying attention to my hand. Now, Matt, I know you're a gentleman, so make it a minute.
Well, thank you. So personally, I'll start by saying I hate Ruto and the entire political class on a personal level. Yeah. So anyway, I want to talk about the building of the church. So I think once we started with affordable housing and allowing for a person to say that they can build their own projects on public land and then sell that and then put that on the market, I think that was the start of, okay, there have been a lot of slippery slopes, but that was part of the start of the slippery slope that has led to what we have today, where a person can donate a building on public property, which we know doesn't make sense, right? So I think that's part of the reason we are where we are. The other thing with this issue of building the church is why is it that if he really cared for the staff of Statehouse, why did he build a church and not say a hospital or something else that would be of value to these people, you know? So I think in the end, his aim is still to consolidate the evangelical vote, and it's basically to just split people along as many lines as possible. Okay, then I'll let Weston and the rest talk about what they're talking about. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Matt. Betty, you've been waiting, and I would love to get your conclusion. Your statement on this conversation, and thereafter, I'd like for us to start now finding a way to close the space because, well, none of us is planning to go to State House, but we are planning to go to church, right? Let's have you, Betty.
Okay, thank you so much, Vizani, Ella, Inobet, and the rest. I hope you guys had a good day. Mimi, actually, the reason why I picked the mic, it came when Western Sheila was actually talking. And I was like, Western, what do you mean? You don't want us to question the government, or what is your take on that? Many people have actually answered you, but I would like just to give you my take or whatever you said. My take was, I came in when you were talking. It's me who feels, actually, at a Kabuya said it all. It's me who feels when I walk to that, when I graduate and I have no work. And my parents actually feels disappointed. You're telling us we're not supposed to question the government because it is not the worst regime to be. Okay, maybe our parents normalized whatever was happening to them. And now we feel the government, the current government that is actually in power right now, have failed me as a person. And that's why people were so ready to go to the streets. I myself was so ready to go to the streets to fight for my own rights, not because someone told me to go to the streets and fight. It's because I'm feeling it. Imagine you opening a business. Well and good, you have graduated and you have there's no office that is actually hiring you. And you decide to open up a business. And because of the government, the business, you can't even earn a thing. You're forced, because of the circumstances, you're forced to close the business. And now I'm not supposed to question the government because this is not the worst regime. Me, what I feel, Ruto is the worst. To me, if I might be young or on other governments, but to me, Ruto is the worst. And it's him. That's why we are in this situation. He have actually bagged every arm of the government. That's why the parliament, the legislature can say a thing. The executive have bagged everyone in the legislature, have bagged everyone in the judiciary. They can say a thing, and that's why I'll die in pain. I'm dead inside because of the current government. And that's why I'm ready to go to the streets. Even if I be hurt on the street, I'll still go to the next Mandamano. Because I'm already dead. Inside, I'm already dead. I have no hope inside myself, in myself. I have no hope. I have no future. And this is the thing we are calling it an end. Because imagine I can't see my kids coming to the same things I normalized during my time. And that's why we are calling it an end. If it's police brutality, we are calling it an end because we don't want our kids to come to face the same thing. Imagine a whole president. Let me now go back to the topic. A whole president. I don't know who the advisors are. You have 21 and so many advisors. Each day you wake up and hire a new advisor. What is their work? If they can really sit down and decide tunatenga 1.2 billion to build a church. Okay, the whole advisory, they sat down and decided we're going to build 1.2 billion in a public land. This one thing, the first thing that I took it's either Ruto just give us a reason to talk more into spaces. He's just buying his time, and he's giving us more reason to talk and talk and talk so that he can strategize for 2027. Or rather, he's showing us 2027 I'm going nowhere. And that's why I'm building a church using my own money in a public land, not a private land. And now you want us to normalize this. Yet our health sector is at stake. Schools, universities are closing. Schools have no classes, they have no books. The CBC thing is a task to the parents, and leave alone the health sector. The same president that budgeted. I might not have interest in other powers because I was young. I was relying on my parents. But now, the budgeting thing that came during my time that I'm at the edge. And the reason why I'm at the edge, I'm trying something, but the government is on my neck. Leta hiyo tax yenye unapata kwa hiyo biashara hata ita grow, leta hiyo tax. And the tax, I can't see it. I can't see. I have no tangible evidence the government have used my tax. I have to close the business and go home. And they introduce a housing levy and everything they're introducing, and you want us to keep quiet. Come on. Thank you, Obeds. I have seen your hands in up. Thank you.
Thank you, Trini. I don't know whether Joseph should speak or it's Western to get his right of reply, then we...
Tumalizie kwanza wageni ambao wajaongea so that we go with Western as we close.
I think...
Thank you, Betty. And I mean, Obed, you've listened from Betty, and there's something she's talked about, and I think towards the end of this talk, we need to address it. This is the issue of all these young people. And by young, I'm just being conservative with my words. But all of these hopeful Kenyans who are now living with no hope, they are a moving body, but dead inside. Because everything they ever dreamt about, including those good certificates, they show them nothing but dust is constant. Betty, we hear you. It is not fair. Obeds, we should proceed to the next speaker. I think Joseph should come, and then let's start winding up.
Joseph, if you can unmute and speak.
I don't propose to proceed, Obeds.
So I guess we go to Western. His right of reply and his final remarks at the same time, I think.
Obeds, I will try as much as possible to be calm, very calm. Those who have responded to me weighed against what I said. The conversation is no more than a dialogue of the deaf. They're not listening to what I'm saying, they come with their own things. Did I ever tell anyone not to critique this government? Who said that? You can go and listen to the clip. Did I say that? Do I hold brief for William Ruto? I don't. Why are you triggered by Kiamba? Of course I'll be triggered. People are killed. Why would that trigger you? That's an emotional thing. What I'm asking is, why do you invoke Kiamba and stop there? Why do you stop there? I walked all over the country in the aftermath of that violence, all over. where that violence took place. And I'm speaking experientially. Stories from people who experienced that. Myself, I escaped that violence by a whisker. I don't know whether I spoke to this platform or that Nakuru violence. I escaped it by a whisker. So don't come here and ask me why you triggered. I'm not looking at these things from an academic perspective, Marabu. And I can put it to you, I'm proud of my schooling. You don't celebrate Oscar Sudi because you think he's not going to school. You have a problem with the people who think. So what do you want? What exactly do you want? You don't celebrate Sudi because he doesn't have education. Okay, people have gone to school, you also have a problem with them. What exactly do you want? What do you want? Who do you celebrate? Yeah, if I didn't go to school, you would be disparaging me the way you're disparaging Oscar Sudi. Would you be celebrating me? Would you? So we must be careful not to say nonsensical things. We have a problem in Kenya because we don't celebrate scholarship and thinking. And that's why we are in problems. How can somebody say he has a problem? Well, you can have a problem with an academic who's saying things that don't make sense, and they are there. But you can't say the things I'm saying don't make sense. They do. The only thing that they don't cohere with what you think is the correct reading of Kenyan politics and history. So you are using your narrow-mindedness to gate what I'm saying. And therefore you find me wanting, but you're using a wrong yardstick, which is weak. No one should go to school and be ashamed of themselves. Why then did you go to school? I'm not going to be ashamed of myself. This going to school gives me a platform. I meet presidents, top-ranking people, and they listen to me. Would I have had that opportunity if I didn't go to school? Would I? So why should I be ashamed? Why? And I tell them my mind, and they listen. So if you have got your own inferiority complex, don't bring it here. I don't have it. And I'm saying it's not a rant.
Okay. Just keep on the point, Western. It's rather
this is not a rant.
Please keep on the
But they are
point.
very personal, Eli. They are personal. I didn't mention anybody. They are very personal. You know, academics, this and this, that's personal. You know, you're pouring scorn on somebody's accomplishments. That's personal.
Western,
Okay, let me proceed.
Allow me. It's not a problem. You know, we respect and we have conversations here, and sometimes we might agree to disagree. And because I would assume, and I believe that sometimes it can sound very harsh.
What is it?
But I really appreciate if it doesn't go ad hominem, because you know, an eye for an eye does not solve any problem. It becomes a part of the problem. So I would really expect that you clarify your point without necessarily having to hit back in that sense, so that at the end of the day, you know, you started to say you want to become, and that's what I expected. I really appreciate if you can prosecute the point, clarify the issue,
because
and move on from
Obets, that's how I was trained. I don't go for the person. So if you listen to my submissions, I will mention your name. So I'm going to compliment you. If I'm not going to compliment you, I stick to facts. But you cannot name me or speak in a roundabout way, while in actual sense you're referring to me. That's ad hominem. It's a dishonesty. You can't do that. So I didn't teach you comprehension. So if you don't understand what I'm talking about, that can't be my problem. I didn't tell anybody not to critique this government. I don't hold brief for this government. I don't. What do I gain from it? What do I gain from it? What I'm saying is that let us not be partial. If we plead ignorance that we don't know Kenya's history, and we'll have to explain why we're ignorant of our history. So where are we going? Then we must be ignorant in totality, but let's not be selective in what we remember and what we choose not to remember. Because if you choose one act of pain that happened in a particular part of Kenya, and you forget, you elect not to remember another act of pain, you are erasing, you're minimizing the pain of those people who suffered at around the same time. That's what we're doing. That can't be a way to find justice in Kenya. Can it be? And I didn't talk about 2017. I'm saying it's in 2013. Some of us saw what we're getting into. So if you are not born then, I mean, you must be forgiven because you are not born. If you are not of age, you must be forgiven. But if you are of age at that time, you can't plead ignorance that you don't know what's happening now. You cannot.
Western,
You
I do
can't.
appreciate where you're coming from.
You
I
can't.
totally get what you're saying. What I would really love, if you don't mind, I would appreciate your final remarks. The point is made, and that is very clear.
So I think I've responded to I mean everything. Mine is
Yeah,
not
the
a
point
rant. I
is
don't
made.
rant. No, I don't rant. We don't
No,
rant. We don't do that.
I request.
So I'm
I
landing
request that you give your
Obet.
final remarks.
Obet, you know why when I speak, you sit up or somebody else sits up? Because I say things that will squirm you. And as somebody who trains young people, I pay attention to somebody who says things that are exceptional. I focus on that. Not everybody else who is regurgitating the same thing. That is it. And I train them to be independent-minded, that they can critique my views and say things that they think will offend me, but I say, I will not be offended. As long as you have a position, you're convinced, raise it. In Kenya, where we're trained to conform. And I can see it on this platform, conform. The moment somebody says something that is out of tune with what everybody is saying, now the thing goes haywire. We will have to get out of that. And if we do, we will stop being personal, personalizing things.
Okay, so what's the essence of conversations is actually to learn from each other, and that's the truth. We will speak things that do not necessarily agree. We all don't have the same perspectives and points of view. It's always going to be different. However, again, as I said, you have the privilege of having the opportunity to instruct. Others don't have. Your view might be different from what everybody else is, and it's very normal. So I'd really appreciate, because the point has been made, and I totally understand where everybody's coming from. I would appreciate if you'd give your final remarks, because even if we belabor the point, it's quite clear that there are things that probably would have done differently. And I think it's fair that that be the case. And to that extent, it's clear. So I would really appreciate
I yield. I yield by saying that I don't thrive in a lynch mob. I'm not going to lynch you. Even if everybody else is gathering rocks and they're tired to lynch you, I won't join that. I won't do it. I don't thrive under that. I want to appreciate what is it that you have done. Some of us are socialized to participate in lynching as a mob. I don't do that. I would want to give you a chance. The same way, if I'm on the wrong, I would want to be given a chance. Well, that is it. So this president here has failed Kenya, but he's building on historical failure. That's the point I'm making. And that's factually correct. If those who came before him didn't fail, he would have had no room to fail and do the things he's doing. Factually correct. So if you want to erase that history and focus on him, that reading is completely ahistorical and cannot stand the master. And I can tell you today, tomorrow, next week, next year, 10 years, 50 years from now, I'm correct. I'm correct. I yield.
Thank you, Westerner, and I agree. We can't do revisionism, and we must appreciate. There's a contribution that has been made, and it's something that has accumulated over time. He's the first of the unfortunate problem we're dealing with. But
Obeds.
Hold on, Matt. I'll allow you to. I have an order if it's not a problem. So, what I would, we've been here. Sometimes we give, the how we interact in our space. We do appreciate that people have different points of view, and we can agree to disagree. I think it's important that we probably talk about the point, not necessarily the person. Also, let's not take things a little too personal, because some of us have not met in person. We've met here on spaces, and we sit here. It's midnight in Nairobi, going to 1, and we're still having these conversations because we all care for this country. And if that be the case, There are no more small frictions will be here and there. And I think it's normal in our discourse to have these disagreements. But I hope and pray that at the end of the day, we all live here knowing that we are all trying to do what is in the best interest of this country. And we can always mend relations. And there's nobody who was attacking anyone in any case. The intention was to try to put a point across. Maybe didn't put it up across properly. So that said, I'd like to allow March, let me allow you to speak, then go to Abdullah and then Marabu in that order.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so I think I understood what Weston was saying. And this is a question I often have because, for example, I think a week ago, Redemptor was in a space and she spoke very painfully about two people who were killed quite recently by police while protesting in her town or something. While people were protesting Albert Ojwang, someone was shot in the neck or in the head, right? And then if we talk about, basically we can talk about, I don't know, Kiamba, we talk about 1992, 1997, Wagala massacre, we go back up to pre-colonial period, we go back up to the times of the Portuguese and the Omanis at the coast. My question is, how in a practical way address all these issues? Because if we start listing them, then everyone has a grievance. And this is part of also something Weston talked about with regards to affirmative action for certain ethnic groups. And the whole thing with affirmative action is very hard to do because I see it even in the case of gender. People talk about affirmative action, but if you start saying, today I'll start giving jobs to women, men will complain. If you say, today I'll start giving jobs to this group, or anyway. So maybe my question for Weston is this thing that you're talking about being holistic in reviewing our history. How can we possibly do it?
So, Matt, I get what you're asking. What I'm looking for, I presume that's your final remarks. And Weston, we'd have another conversation at some point, which I think it's important. For now, I presume that that's a contribution we probably pick in our Sunday schooling and a few other areas. And you can probably have one. Sometimes affirmative action is reverse discrimination, in my view. It can be worked in a different way, or people have to agree a certain way that where the society is involved in making that decision. We don't tend to have that. Leaders make decisions on our behalf. But it's an argument that can be had, and people see the pros and cons of those. So let me allow Abdullah, then Marabu.
Yes, okay. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And also, as we finish up, I just want to say that leaders who have this position, they are the one we are going to criticize. I personally, I cannot say who was starting. I was not online. I was in school. During his second term, I was online and I was actively in politics. I used to criticize Uhuru Kenyatta. He did a lot of bad things. BBI was not good, and so many other things. The cost of living was very high. President William Ruto, as much as I did not vote him because I did not vote in 2022 because there was no any good candidate there. I was voting for Wajakoya, but you could not meet the bare minimum. William Ruto did not do what he was supposed to do. If William Ruto did the state capture, I think some of the Western points could have been vindicated, that we could have gone for these guys who have been stealing our money. So if Maraga, because I'm going to vote for Maraga, the next election, I've already made up my mind. If Maraga comes in and he doesn't arrest William Ruto, and William Ruto should account for all the atrocities that he has done to us, I will not be concentrated so much on William Ruto. I will be concentrated on Maraga and the next president, because I cannot be concentrated. I will concentrate on the person who has the power to do it. So thank you so much, and also have a good night, everyone.
Thank you, Abdullah. Marabu Stokes, your final remark.
Thank you. So somewhere in 2022, a man stood on top of the car and said he's going to create 500,000 jobs. Border people are going to get money. Mama Mboga, they're going to get Wi-Fi. Some women are going to get diapers, but did not say that he's going to build a church in State House. The reason why I did not say he's going to build a church in State House was because he was not going to be elected if he said so. So what we are asking for is what the pledges that somebody said that they're going to do. If we knew that this person was coming in as president and his agenda was building churches, we would have considered that in the elections and decided if we are going to vote for him or not. What we are against is this idea that you can promise people through your manifesto, and then once you get to office, then you turn around and do the opposite. Okay? And this is what the Gen Z are trying to fight against. We have no problem with churches being built, whether it is essential or a necessity for the people who live in State House. Then let's follow procedure. On public land, let's use public resources. Let the people of Kenya be called and be told architects to come and design it. Why can't we just make it like a national competition and have people compete on who's the best designer and give Kenyans jobs, give a nice tendering process? But it's still against the Constitution and what our country stands for in separation of the church and the state. So what we are really calling for is not anything above the law. We are within the law in calling for these issues. And as I learned, when we were fighting for independence, our ancestors, there were people who were collaborators and there were people who stood or sat on the fence. But eventually, independence came and all of them benefited from the fruits of independence. So even today, there are people who are benefiting one way or another, and they don't see the problem with this church being built. We have them on X, and that is their right. But the thing is, if we follow the rule of law, constitutionalism, we wouldn't have all these problems that we are having. Because I'm sure there's a stipulated way on which construction is supposed to happen on public land and State House, moreover. But the fact that we want to bring this into a public debate shows that somebody is trying to go over the set out rules. Obed, personally, I'm not against any form of intellectual, as my brother Western would think. I'm also an intellectual. I've written 2 dissertations. I will be going against myself. But the thing is, let's not get so comfortable and so detached from the reality and see things the way they're supposed to be seen from a legal and a patriotic eye. Because when we allow this person to do something because somebody else did, then we will never go back. Thank you very much for the time, and God bless.
Thank you, Marabu Kabuya. Give you 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. I want to give my final remarks. I want to have 3 recommendations or words during the proceedings today. I did hear 1 or 2 people, cite, I don't remember the names, but I remember someone saying I'm a staunch Christian, but this is my opinion about this matter. And we know what we are discussing is not a matter of faith, but rather matters of proper governance, transparency, stewardship, and so forth. My first word to Christians who are listening to me, I am an ambassador one of my hearts is a theologian of major world religions. And I think the Kenyan Christian has left out a very important prism of 3 major ones through which Christians interpret their religion or their God. Africa is dominated by one that does not work positively for the African public. It works for the African individual. it's comforting to the individual, but that it's very limited when it comes to governance. I would recommend an exploration to you, the Christian or believer or whatever. Explore a theology called liberation theology. You can just Google that or ChatGPT it and see what it says, and buy a book, download an article, get a PDF or 2 or 3. You will still be close to God. Only that now you will see him differently as one who is able to actually perceive our daily oppression as something the average person can deal with. 2, a word to William Ruto. I know he's not here, but to anyone who thinks, I don't think anyone will take this message to him, but to anyone who we perceive what I'm saying, William Ruto has a chance like that which Winston Churchill had. Winston Churchill was actually not, even by his fellow Britons, a good prime minister per se, but he was saved by wartime. He became very good. He used his oratory to redeem himself. Soon after that, of course, that ended and others took his place. But I think William Ruto has a chance to be what I may call a wartime president. He has inherited a youth that is experiencing very dire situations. He has a chance not to continue in a legacy of what it means to be in a trim suit, create a nice manifesto, put together a party that wins a majority. But he's president for the first time, rather than in something that has not been experienced by his predecessors, of a youth bulge. Was first seen by Raneberger in the leaked cable in 2009, mentioned in passing by Uhuru, but it has stopped with him 2 years hardly into his rulership. He can change everything. And those who are his fans, and we are all his fans, he's our president, he's protected by the Constitution. But I think he should change and listen to the music. People are not going to the street merely because of being idle. I see your hand. One final thing, 10 seconds. To the youth, you are our opposition. You Gen Z and Gen Zote, you are our opposition. Continue calling for accountability, for good governance. The spirit of our Constitution lives in you. Don't apologize for it. Keep the fire alive. Viva. Thank you.
Thank you, Kabuya. Redemptor?
Thank you very much. Kenyans avoid conflict. So you will not address the elephant in the room. You're all very nice and I appreciate you. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. President Ruto is telling us in Sheng, I'm balling and you're not. You're all poor. I can build a church, you're satanic. And Western has just said, nyinyi ni maduansi. And even if it's 100 years, I will be right. And askize how he talked to us. It's not what he says most of the times. It is the tone. It's condescending. And that's exactly why Ruto is in big trouble. It's not what you do, it's how you make people feel. That's why when you talk about housing, finance, what, these young people are saying, we are not our parents. We will F you. So to summarize, we come here not because we know, we come here because we have to speak truth to power. And I really appreciate Marabu because I've always known he's an intellectual. What he said there's something about the TV interviews that the people are removed. And I have to talk about the Wagala massacre. I have to. Because I was saying, there's a massacre that happened that 1,000 people died in 1984. Can you imagine 1984? They went and isolated people from a clan in the Somali and put them in a newly built airstrip. Any boy 12 years and above, and the men, and they were shot and there was a stampede. It's documented and they say 1,000 people died, but the locals have never forgotten 40 years later. So there's a lot of hurt, and it's very unfortunate. There's always the iconic figure of something. Maybe 207 is the only thing people talk about all the time. Are there victims even in these spaces? I've talked about the Wagala massacre because we're talking about a church, and culture was involved. Historical factors were involved, and people suppressed that history. The best thing they got was they were put in the justice, and it's called justice and what? It was acknowledged in that justice and peace something report. Many people have been shot. We saw the bodies of young people floating in dams. And we cannot think, I think Kenyans are traumatized in terms of seeing dead bodies in the last 3 years. So when you talk about church, people get upset. They don't know why they're upset. And I'll finish by saying this. The reason I talked about documentation, we have heard about massacres, but about post-election violence. We've seen a bit of it. But for the first time in our history, we have seen it live. We've seen it. We've seen somebody shot live. You must factor what that does to the human psyche. And that's why I always stick to the storytelling, to the human side of a story. And to the human side of a story, mimi hii niko na shida na Mungu. Really, we've seen human rights abuse. Why would you allow this man to also take your rights and to speak on your behalf? I know it's complicated to say it, but I know really for those who are Christians here, they know God honors himself. And for those who are young people who will not be called duanzis, and please keep talking. You might save your life by talking. There's a young woman who talked about not getting a job, and thank you, Kabuya. Thank you for validating people's pain and struggle. Really appreciated your speech today. And Obeds, don't apologize for us. Let people fight in groups. Wacha tumenyane, tuheshimiane. Mi sijasoma sana, but I speak for the people who've been brutalized and forgotten victims. That's my area of activism. So what do I know? I just know the suffering in this country has never reached this level. And Ruto, you've hurt us because you send people here to listen to us, and you have hurt us because of how you talk to us more than anything else. How you pretend you're the only person who loves this country and you have a plan. To the extent you ask us why you go, you tell people mambo ni matatu. At the end of the day, I encourage myself. I know it's defeatist to say mortality. These are mere mortals, all of them. Even fair to mention, Ella gets scared of Subarus when we mention their names. They are mere mortals. If you cut them, they bleed. They wear those bulletproofs. Nimemaliza. So sometimes when I'm fearing abductions, I remember they're also fearing something. And that's how I console myself. Long live Kenya, may this generation save us. You are the golden generation if you are below the age of 40 or around 45. Please go and shine for your country. And there's something that has been put in you. To whom much is given, much is required. Asanteni.
Thank you, Redemptor. I sometimes have to apologize because I've got a responsibility as a co-host, and I'm sure you know you do this. Ronyo, your final remarks.
Thank you so much, Bishop Obed. Thank I will
Hii title nilikukataza. Mimi nitapoteza kondoo. Don't even think about it.
I will try to. So nasikia hapa sijui tuongea, wacha tuongea tu. We try. Unajua tuliambiwa we are very good. We are second to none. Hivyo huyo jamaa alisema. But still we are.
But you have to do a test and pay 30,000 to prove you speak English. Okay.
But still we are products colonialism. So doesn't mean like you look at Russia ama you angalia China. They have surpassed all these Western countries, and they are very good. In terms of technology, weapon and all those things, they have surpassed them. But one thing they have really tried to make sure they have not lost their own language. But African, we are very proud of speaking other people's language. So na ndio maana watu wanatutusi, lakini ni sawa tu.
Roger, tupatie final
yes,
remarks.
Let me say this, Robert. Unajua nimechukua mic because ya Western. I will not lie. Unajua nobody knows the reason why Kasongo ako na hii mashida yote ni kujifanya anajua everything. Nobody knows everything. Otherwise haungekuwa kwa hii dunia. It's only God who knows everything. That's why he's everywhere. So sisi wote tuko hapo kwa sababu nobody knows everything. I learn from you, you learn from me. So hii uchuki kidogo muache bana. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Justice for all. I give you a chance to give your final remarks. Ronjo, tutaongea mambo nyuma ya 10.
So, brother of its Eli and everybody else, I think I've spaced with almost everybody in this group today and appreciate that. My closing remarks will be based on 3 points. One, how I used to pray back in the day when I needed a call for me to date. Two, why God, gave us Pharaoh so that he can teach the children of Israel a lesson, and obviously these other scriptures that address some of those points. But finally, I will speak that why this generation is here, mostly to teach Kasongo a lesson, ndio iwe funzo kwa wengine. How we pray for our leaders in Kenya is the way I used to be like as a young preacher. I would see a very pretty girl, hata naona tu najua tapia zake, lakini nasema Mungu niokolee huyu, tafadhali just save this one for me. I pray for, conveniently, I want God to save her. Hata kama I don't care about tabia zake, lakini I go to God just to present that for that specific reason. The way we presented Kasongo before God, we were like, we know everything amefanya, lakini when tunaenda kuomba tulikuwa tunasema hata sisi hatujali vitu nyingi, lakini Mungu tupatie huyu kwa sababu at least ana confess kitu fulani. We do that, and then you realize once you have been presented with that girl, I can tell you she won't change. I've tried it, it didn't work. The second part is the aspect of I think God really allowed Kasongo to be chosen as a leader so that Kenyans can realize how bad it is not to listen to him and listen to our own desires and say that tunataka mwizi wetu nini na nini na nini. And obviously, he's become a good lesson for us. It's been tough, but I can tell you, especially for I believe in faith. I have to confess that. I also believe in this kind of discussions, good governance, and looking at the character. But I'm telling you, I think he allowed it to happen so that tufunguke macho. I've never seen this kind of uamusho in Kenya like I'm seeing it, politically speaking, and even the kind of revival that will come to the churches, it's going to be different. But also, God has given the Gen Z, as God was allowing Kasongo to win the last elections, he prepared a generation to deal with him. Hawa jamaa watamnyorosha ndio iwe funzo kwa wengine. Anybody who is coming behind, wacha nikuambia, hata yeye atakuwa anaogopa kila kitu, hakuna mtu atakuwa hii ujinga yote hii with this kind of arrogance and all these kind of things. I'm telling you, it's being dealt with. So my hope and prayer that this does not go in vain. This discussion today has been powerful, has been spot on, and all, whether it's Gen Z, Gen Zote, whatever generation you are in, I think we are all together in this for good governance. Thanks, folks, and have a very blessed weekend. Appreciate all of you.
Thank you, Justice for all. Many people might not know you. They know you by that. But you've been missing in action. You know where. Find time tutaongea kwa tent na wewe kama Ronyo. I would like to say a very simple thing. If you're a king and you surround yourself with idiots, you don't become a smart king. And the less I say of what I think, the better. But the truth is that this country, how do you have a presidential assistant, a PA to the president, lecturing us about leaders? Somebody we did not elect, we don't even know why he talks to us the way. And when you start to think who advises the president, then you start to see why there's a problem. So I will leave it to you Kenyans to decide come 2027. One thing is for sure, I never voted for him and I won't vote for him because based on his character and the actions, he is not the person we should have given the reins of power. But then again, we have to learn. The lesson has been taught. Sometimes it has to be the hard one. We'll have to swallow our pride, accept that we made a mistake, correct it in 2027. If it's not too late. Thank you.
I guess it's very late for the night, but not too late to change and experience what good or great leadership is all about. Obeds, I was about to end this space and say it's been great. We've talked a lot and we've finished everything we had to talk about. But I just remembered our president is planning to spend his personal amount of 1.2 billion approximately on a church building. But just across him, because he's not so far from people who are suffering, I don't know what suffering will look like, but his policemen, they sleep in things that look like hot boilers. Right now it's cold, and it just takes one kick of an anger outburst to end up in your neighbor's bedroom. But he's going to be spending 1.2 billion shillings. And when Kenyans will ask him questions and they decide they need to have a national conversation, he will actually ask these boys in blue, I think it's navy blue now, to go on the street and shoot them dead and come back sleep in their boilers. Or right now they look like
Nasikia
more of.
baridi. Hawezi lala
Or saizi sio boiler,
mabati.
saizi ni nini?
Kodi nasikia baridi. Chache mabati.
Saizi ni ka fridge. So you boys in blue, maybe you'll have an opportunity to speak to the president. Tell him we have no problem with the church. Maybe you can start by donating some of that money so that your houses are built. You live in decent housing. And as if you thought the whole conversation about the state house having a church built with personal finances without the consent of Kenyans on public property. Remember how we started the conversation of affordable housing. It ended up becoming social housing, affordable housing. There are Kenyans actually today who've been duped to buy houses on property owned by the public. That's the truth. How do you convert public land into private property and call it affordable housing? And when Kenyans also ask about the issue of the church at State House, we are told 2,000 people live within the State House premise. Sometimes they have funeral. But these idiots come and worship in our churches when they have to go. Today I've been too tough with my language. Obeds, I accept my suspension. So after this, that means I'll be off air until on Monday, because this Saturday, some great Kenyans will be around in Europe trying to entertain us. I'm told Bien alianza safari yake na alhamdulillah, akafika pale Amsterdam. So most of us will be going to enjoy his music. So if you're in Amsterdam, make your way to Melkweg. We'll be there enjoying a lot of music courtesy of Bien. And we'll be asking him why he's shirtless. And if you think that's enough, there's this daughter of Ukambani called Kasiva Mutua, who will be also in Antwerpen, the city of a lot of good stuff in Belgium. And she'll be doing her The Story tour. So if you have time, also make time to look around and find out if you'll be able to join up with Kasiva Mutua. So that is why Kenya is important to all of us. As we mourn about our Sadaka, Takakitu, there are Kenyans who are actually flying the bendera of Kenya and making us proud. Those are the Kenyans we celebrate. We celebrate all of you who are patriotic to this country, regardless of all the challenges we face, including job or lack of job employment opportunities. We still celebrate you for being patriotic. And to all the diaspora, you've been called anarchists and financiers of anarchism. But I'm told by this gentleman called Mutai Kagwe, sio nyinyi wezi, wizi wanajulikana. Allow me to just play that tape as we try to wind up the conversation for the night. Okay, sasa hiyo imeenda wapi surely. Obeds, as we do that, I also want to remind us, Obeds will be carrying us with the Sunday schooling, so don't go far. We still want to have this conversation happening. Let's listen into this.
ina fertilizer na ina nini na mambo kama hayo na ina mahindi and so on and so forth. Juzi tulikuwa na NCPB pale upande wa Meru ambao mlisikia vile mambo ilifanyika. Hiyo sasa hiyo ni ugaifu. Na ni lazima tuseme vile ilivyo. Hiyo sio mambo ya Gen Z. Msidanganywe ni mtu ati ni watoto wenu ambao walikuwa wana demonstrate, walivunja hiyo kitu maua, walivunja police station. Sio watoto. It is not our children. It is not our children who are doing those things. It is not the Gen Z demonstrators who are doing those things. These things are planned by criminals. Wale ambao mnasikia wanaingia supermarkets. It is not these young people. Ni watu ambao wanajua kuna maandamano siku fulani, alafu sasa wanapanga hiyo maneno so that they can hide behind the demonstrations.
And that's the conversation for Sunday. We are looking who is to blame and who is to take responsibility when chaos erupts, especially in such a scenario whereby it becomes almost a blanket condemnation that young demonstrators become the thugs and wanted criminals by the state. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a pleasure hosting you tonight. Looking forward to our upcoming spaces. Until then, my name is Likyani Eli. Obezorik was my co-host. Justice for All, thank you for coming. Abdullah, Betinjeri, Kabuya Mwitok, Redemptor, Marabou Talks, Western, among other speakers who made it to the panel tonight. We do appreciate all of you. We do hope to have an engagement this coming Sunday on the Sunday Schooling. And my good friend Obez will be taking the lead in that. But that said, I can't wait to see you on Monday, because on Monday is about the bigger picture and the aspirant. If you are here and you're aspiring for any office, make sure to send us an email. That is info@mizani254.org. The title should be The Aspirant. Tell us something about you and we'll be able to schedule you into a Monday space. That said, let me log out by saying, kama ni Mungu tunaomba, na azidi kuwabariki. This is Mizani 254, where the scales of balance are restored and meaningful conversations thrive.
Mizani 254, where the scales of balance are restored and meaningful conversations thrive. For more information, visit www.mizani254.org.